and accelerate infrastructure reforms. But hang on, aren't we already heavily indebted as a country, with spending on debt servicing now outstripping baseline spending on services such as health and education? Aren't we already spending 1.2 billion rand a day on servicing our debt as a country? Or is this the kind of debt that we actually want to incur, the kind of debt that amounts to responsible borrowing in terms of it being economic growth-oriented borrowing? So we'll have full analysis for you coming up at the top of 7 a.m. of this loan that has been granted by the World Bank to South Africa. Then in political news, a political bolt out of the blue, or was it? The African Transformation Movement removes its long-serving president, Vuyo Zungula, and replaces him with Professor Caesar Nongunga. He is the leader of the 12 Apostles Church in Christ. And this move, we are told, it's touted as a leadership transition that marks a new era of what the party is calling strategic growth and enabling it to continue to champion the cause of the marginalized, drive socio-economic transformation, and uphold the ideals of justice, equity, and a true democracy in South Africa. But you and I know countless questions continue to linger around Zungula's ousting. At about 7:20 this morning, in the second hour of the show, I'll be in conversation with Zaman Jona, who is the spokesperson of the African Transformation Movement, and we'll tease out the various theories about why Zungula has been removed from the position of ATM president. He will, of course, continue as the caucus leader in parliament for that political party. And to this, amid popular calls for a clampdown on illegal migration, Cabinet has approved two measures that will have the effect of imposing stricter controls on the number of documented foreign nationals that can be employed within a particular sector. So it's part of a broader move to try and control and bring migration and its interlinkages with the labor sector and try and bring that situation under control. So the Minister of Employment and Labour, for example, will now be able, once the bill, one is a bill, the other is a policy. Once the bill has gone through Parliament and has become an act and the policy is fully in place, the Minister of Employment and Labour will be able to set limits on the number of documented migrant workers that can be employed in a workplace and an economic sector. So these measures have been welcomed by organizations like COSATU, who say the limits are critical for an economy that is battling dangerously high and rising unemployment levels at about 43.1% overall and 72% among the youth. So at about 7:15 this morning, I'll be in conversation with COSATU's General Secretary, Soli Petwe, and we'll be unpacking those policy proposals that have been made by Cabinet that have to do with controlling migration and how it links with the labor market in the country. Morning Brief team, to your stations once again for the takeoff. And Musa with news updates at the top and the bottom of every hour. Rob Byrne with your traffic, Zaikan at the sports desk, Melissa Buta with the morning brief in brief, Ndauleng Lechela has your market and economic news covered, and Sipho Mantula with your Africa update at about 7:20 this morning. In it all, you are a crucial part of this conversation. It's a dialogue where we sharpen each other's perspectives on the key issues of the day. So do give me a call. The number is 086 000 2032. I'll take your WhatsApp voice notes. Please send those to 061 410 4107. On social media, we are at SAFM Radio on X. We are SAFM Radio on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, we are live on our YouTube channel. That is SAFM Radio. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief started.
Can one word unlock eternal glory? Okay, maybe just a shiny trophy and bragging rights. It's Password US, hosted by the king of chaos himself, Jimmy Fallon. Celebrities try to guess words. Hilarity ensues. Logic? Optional. Laughter guaranteed. Password US, where saying the right word might win the game, but saying the wrong one is way more fun. Password US, Saturdays 7:30 on S3. Say it like you mean it, or don't. We're not judging.
We're extending the sunshine on Mzansi's favorite adventure SUV with Ford Blue Sky offers. For just $849,999, a new Everest XLT could be yours. Glide through the burbs or power through nature's toughest with a 3.5-ton brake towing capacity. You'll even get 4x4 driver training through Ford Family Promise for free. Head to a Ford dealer and get your new Everest XLT for just $849,999. T&Cs apply.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
Yeah, let's get the briefing session for you this morning started with Melissa Puta, who is coming through with the morning brief in brief. Melissa, good morning. Let's start with a breakthrough in the case of Cindiso Magaka and the murder of Cindiso Magaka in 2017.
Morning, Thulasizwe. So, interesting developments in this case. One of the hitmen, Cindiso Simelane, pleaded guilty in the Pietermaritzburg High Court to this 2017 murder of former ANC Youth League Secretary General Cindiso Magaka. He also admitted to the attempted murder of 3 others, malicious damage to property and unlawful possession of a firearm. Ngoenga detailed the events and his involvement with co-accused Sibonelo Mieza, Mlungisi Mkalana, who was declared unfit to stand trial, and Mbulelo Mpofana. His plea was accepted and he was convicted. Ngoenga's sentencing is set to take place on the 30th of June. The case against Mieza and Mpofana will continue separately with a new indictment to be served on the 19th of June.
So hopefully this helps to answer some of the questions around the killing of Cindiso Magaka and perhaps in a way may assist the prosecution in prosecuting those that are being prosecuted. And then tell me about the story that we touched upon yesterday, the issue of the judge in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial, Judge Ratamo Kgwatleng. He's now apologized.
Yes, so the presiding judge over the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial has publicly apologized for racially charged comments made in court last week. After rebuking a lawyer for taking time off to run the Comrades Marathon, the judge made controversial remarks about black lawyers and South Africa's leadership. Facing public and parliamentary backlash, the judge admitted his conduct was inappropriate and offered an unreserved apology to the public, judiciary, and political leaders. He also invited lawyers to apply for his recusal if they believed he could not ensure a fair trial. If recused, the case would restart for a third time. The 5 accused in Meyiwa's 2024 murder case have pleaded not guilty thus far.
And then tell me about the Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Gwagube, declaring youth unemployment a national crisis.
The Basic Education Minister, Siviwe Gwagube, has declared youth unemployment a national crisis, with 7 out of 10 young people in South Africa unable to find jobs. To address this, she is leading efforts to develop a national policy to teach entrepreneurship from the foundation phase of schooling. Partnering with the European Union, the Department of Basic Education aims to expand the entrepreneurship, education and employability initiative launched in 2018 in 73 schools nationwide. The goal is to equip learners with entrepreneurial and future-focused skills, including those related to artificial intelligence, to help reduce poverty and boost employment in the country.
All right, Melissa, thank you for that. That's Melissa Puta there with the morning brief in brief.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
So on the weather front, as you can imagine, just step outside or, open a window or something and you will know and you will realize how cold it really is in many parts of the country. The result is that the South African Weather Service has issued a plethora of warnings, and those warnings are really important. So I'd rather prioritize those and really just give you the warnings, and that will give you a sense of what the weather is looking like in your own area. So let's do exactly that. We start with an orange level 6 warning. It says disruptive snow resulting in danger to life, pass closures and communities cut off. That is expected over the Joe Gabi District Municipality in Enoch Mgijima, Molteno, and Matatiele local municipalities in the Eastern Cape. Then another orange level 6 warning. It says disruptive rain leading to flooding of settlements and property, roads, danger to life, with some communities temporarily cut off. That is expected in places over Amatole or OR Tambo, as well as Buffalo City district municipalities, also in the Eastern Cape. An orange level 5 warning. It says disruptive rain leading to danger to life, flooding and displacements of settlements, as well as mudslides. That is expected over the Alfred Nzo, Makana, Ndlambe, Kocha and Kokama municipalities of the Eastern Cape. We have a yellow level 2 warning for disruptive snow leading to loss of livestock, minor passes closed, and traffic disruptions due to snow and icy roads. That is expected over the Chris Hani District Municipality, Dr. Beyers Nodier in Graaff-Reinet, Raymond Mhlaba, Amahlati, and Umzimvubu local municipalities of the Eastern Cape. Then there's a yellow level 2 warning. It is for disruptive rain leading to localized flooding of settlements and roads, and that is expected in places over Joe Gabi, Chris Hani, Blue Crane Route, Dr. Beyers Nodier, Sundays River Valley, and Nelson Mandela Bay metro municipalities, also in the Eastern Cape. There's a yellow level 4 warning in place for damaging winds and waves, resulting in localized disruption of small harbors and or ports for a short period of time, small vessels at risk of taking on water and capsizing in locality, difficulty in navigation, for example, small vessels in short periods, steep waves, and being hampered, progress being hampered due to strong winds, and localized disruptions to beachfront activities. For example, closure of beaches for swimming, shore or rock angling. And those conditions are expected along the coast of KwaZulu-Natal, and that is for tomorrow and on Wednesday. Then we have an orange level 6 warning. It is for damaging winds and waves, resulting in damage to settlements, some structural damage, disruption to ports and harbors, and danger to vessels at sea. And that is expected between Kai River mouth and Port Edward. A yellow level 2 warning. It is for damaging waves, resulting in localized disruption to ports and harbors, difficulty in navigation of small vessels with a risk of taking on water and capsizing in locality. And those conditions are expected between Port Alfred and Pedi, the Pedi coast. Then you have, I wonder where the Pedi coast is. Anyway, let me move on. You have a yellow level 4 warning. It is for damaging interior winds, resulting in localized damage to settlements, both formal and informal. Localized loss of agricultural production and some transport routes and travel services affected by wind and falling trees, and that is to be expected in the central and northern interior of KwaZulu-Natal. Orange level 5 warning. Damaging winds resulting in injuries and danger to life from flying debris, damage to settlements both formal and informal, loss of agricultural production, some structural damage and transport routes and travel services affected by wind or falling trees. That is expected in the south of KZN. Then a yellow level 2 warning. It is for damaging wind, resulting in localized damage to settlements, disruption to power or communication, and disruption to ports and harbors, and that is expected in places over Buffalo City Metro, Amahlati, Intsigayetu, Dr. A.B. Xuma, Elundini, Mzimbu, and Matatiele local municipalities of the Eastern Cape. And lastly, a yellow level 4 warning. It is for disruptive rainfall resulting in localized flooding of settlements, low-lying areas and bridges, and minor vehicle accidents due to slippery roads. And that is expected in the extreme south of KwaZulu-Natal. So overall, it is freezing cold and it's precarious out there in terms of your weather. So do take care.
The price of milk may be going up, but with Outsurance, you could be saving on your car insurance premiums. Like Irfan, who saves 411 Rand a month on his 2012 Ford Figo 1.4.
For a while, I've been looking for ways to save money, and within 10 minutes, I was signed up with him. I'm saving 411 Rand a month. Outsurance helping me save money.
Switch and save today. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
With Outsurance, when you look at it, it sounds too good to be true, but it's good. It's true.
Have you heard about the legendary Out bonus? After 3 consecutive years of not claiming, you'll get 10% of your paid premiums back in cash. Isn't it time you got something out of your insurance? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. With Outsurance, you always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
I'm still recovering from that word. It was a tour de force. I've never done weather that long. Anyway, let me move on. More than 10,000 people, including heads of state, scientists, activists, and business leaders, are gathered in Nice in France this week for the United Nations Ocean Conference, that is UNOC, the largest ocean summit ever convened. The conference has opened with strong calls to accelerate action to protect the ocean from people and to protect people from the ocean. So let's speak to Dr. Matthew Gemmes-Hazen, who is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Pretoria's Whale Unit. Good morning to you, Doc, and thank you for your time. Part of the focus of this conference... Yes. So part of the conference part of the focus we're told is to protect the ocean from people and protect people from the ocean. It sounds like an ecosystem homeostasis, balance, sustainable development challenge. Why does the ocean need protection from people and people need protection from the ocean?
Well, I guess it's all about, the true definition of sustainability is it's something that works both ways, So as much as we're doing it to protect biodiversity and ocean and all its resources, we also do, we need to protect livelihoods and humans and our economy. And I guess it's something that we shouldn't forget that, we give all these inherent things like biodiversity and we give all this value to all these things in the ocean and nature. So ultimately, we're doing it for us as much as we're doing it for the ocean.
So the theme of protecting people from the ocean, is that driven in part by some of the effects of climate change that we are starting to see in terms of, human development activities affecting ocean systems and weather patterns that occur? For instance, the floods that we saw happening in Spain last year, part of the explanation seemed to stem from, the various issues around rising temperatures over the Mediterranean.
Yes, well, the ocean is ultimately what drives global climate, and most of the heat that's being, the excess heat that's being produced due to human activity is being absorbed in the ocean. So it is ultimately what climate change will be manifested through is the ocean. So it's really the point of reference that we should be focused on.
And talking about the manifestations that we are seeing and also the talk of protecting by 2030, protecting 30% of the world's oceans. Tell me about the human activities that would need to be adapted and changed, to achieve these goals of protecting 30% of the world's oceans by 2030.
Well, this whole thing of protection is arising from the fact that, we have marine protected areas, very few of them. I think it's less than 3% of our oceans are currently under formal protection. And even these marine protected areas are really functioning to preserve biodiversity and acting as kind of refuges for where fish stocks can start to replenish and spill over into surrounding regions. So we're really seeing the benefits of protection. And so one only wonders, what happens if you increase protection to 30%? It benefits the economy, it benefits fisheries, and it benefits biodiversity. So that's why we're really seeing this focus on creating marine protected areas as kind of refuges and as refuges against climate change and to preserve biodiversity and fish stocks.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Dr. Matthew Gemmes-Hazen, who is a postdoctoral fellow at the University of Pretoria's Whale Unit.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
I don't know. Why are you doing signal? Morning, Zai. Tell me about Hugo Bruges and what he's saying about Bafana facing Mozambique.
He says it's a tough challenge. He's got a youthful squad. Tonight kickoff, 7:30, and you can catch it at the Peter Mokaba Stadium. He says it won't be an easy test.
You see also in that team there are two, three very good players who can decide the game. At the other side, it's a different team than Tanzania. It's more a team that wants to play football because they have the players to play football. So in that part of the game, it will be a little bit more, how can I tell it, comfortable.
Now, cricket, South Africa's coach Shukri Conrad says his side had enjoyed an enlightening evening with England fast bowling great Stuart Broad ahead of their World Test Championship final against Australia at Lord's. Broad, he bowed out of international action 2 years ago, having taken 604 wickets in 167 tests, with many of his best performances reserved for arch rivals Australia. The 38-year-old met with the South Africans over a meal to help with their preparations for the match against the reigning champions starting tomorrow. Cycling news, Jonathan Milan won stage 2 of the Criterium du Dauphiné with a sprint finish. Milan also claimed the yellow jersey from the reigning Tour de France and Giro d'Italia champion Tadej Pogačar, who won the opening stage. And finally, tennis. Brazil's Beatriz Haddad-Maia came back from a set down to defeat two-time Wimbledon winner Petra Kvitova. Kvitova recently returned from maternity leave and is in the first round of the Queen's Championship in London. It's the first time in more than 50 years that women played a professional WTA event at the Queen's Club. And that's a wrap. We'll serve up more sport. Top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the 59-year-old police officer accused of raping a police trainee at the Pretoria West SAPS Training Academy intends to plead not guilty. He was granted bail in the Pretoria Magistrates Court after spending a month in custody. One of the men charged with the murder of former ANC Youth League Secretary General Cindiso Magaka has confessed to the murder. Sibusiso Ngengwa made his confession before the Pietermaritzburg High Court. And the N3 toll concession is urging road users planning to travel on the N3 toll route to keep a close watch on warnings about bitterly cold weather, thunderstorms, damaging winds and the possibility of snowfalls along high-lying parts of the route. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
A very good morning, Kokstad. Southern parts of KZN receiving full attention this morning. Urgent travel advice. Avoid travel through the Kokstad area. Very heavy snowfalls overnight and this morning. Multiple routes in the area are blocked off. You won't be able to get through at this stage between Harding and Kokstad. That road is impassable. Same sort of deal with the 617 north of Kokstad on your way up to Kingscote and Underberg. The R56 that links Kokstad through to Matatial. That is snowed under. And south of Kokstad down to Mount Aleph around Brooks Neck as you get across into the Eastern Cape area, also snowed in as well. So no go as far as Kokstad is concerned. Sit tight. Don't try and get out on those roads. You could run into all sorts of trouble this morning, and please don't underestimate the intensity of the snow that has fallen there. Eastern Cape, the Barclay Pass is still closed just south of Barclay East. Penhook Pass on the N6 that was closed overnight is open, but you'll need to go carefully there, particularly carefully along that section of the N6. Lutzeburg and Wappadberg Pass are open. But again, just a call to drive carefully, particularly as temperatures plummet and the cold can very easily turn into icy conditions. Just away from that, very windy across Durban today, gusts averaging 50 to 75 kilometres now, up to 100 kilometres now. Just had a call from a motorist talking about all the cones and delineators that have been blown over around sort of Key Ridge, Cliffdale on the N3, so an indication that it is pretty windy. Stapleton Road closed at the M13 bridge in Pinetown. It's the first morning you'll be driving into chaotic conditions through there. And Cape Town, still no lights on the Stellenbosch Arterial at Westbank Main, coming out of Blackheath Cowes River towards the R300, all backed up again. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
So for the first update of the morning, let's turn to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, let's start with the exports from China to the United States, you are starting to get the picture now of that trade war that was playing itself out. You're saying that there's been a slump in Chinese exports to the U.S.?
That's right, Thulas, and morning to you. Now, that U.S.-China trade truce struck last month, not necessarily filtering through on the ground. We're seeing this with those export numbers. This as China's exports to the U.S. plunged 34.5% in May, this being the biggest decline since February 2020, and of course, due to the impact of those U.S. tariffs. Now, this decline contributed to the slowdown in China's overall export growth, which expanded at a 3-month low of 4.8%. This was below expectations and a sharp drop from the 8.1% jump recorded in April. According to Lin Song, who's the chief economist for Greater China at ING, the slump in exports is due to the front loading of shipments before the tariffs took effect, which led to a surge in exports in March and April. We are seeing that dissipate as those tariffs took effect from around April. Song also warned that the decline in exports to the U.S. has significant implications for China's economy, which is already facing factory gate deflation, with the producer price index falling 3.3% in May and domestic demand fragility, with imports dropping 3.4%. Now, the data comes as talks between China and the U.S. continue. Trump's put a positive spin on the talks, saying that they are going well, and experts taking comfort in that ahead of day 2 of negotiations.
So I think you may have told me this before, but I was being a typical man, looking like I'm listening and nodding like I'm listening, but maybe I didn't hear. So has Anglo-American been testing the market for interest in anyone to take De Beers off their hands?
Definitely, Thulas. Now, this
so I was
has
being
been
a typical man.
Is it because you don't want to buy the diamond?
I don't know, man. I was just nodding, like I'm listening.
So they seem to be making progress with getting De Beers off its hands. According to reports, the diamond mining business is drawing interest from former CEOs of the company. The potential sale is part of Anglo's restructuring efforts, of course, after defending against the takeover bid from BHP. Former De Beers leaders Gareth Penny and Bruce Cleveler, along with Australian mining veteran Michael O'Keefe, are reportedly leading groups of potential buyers. Anglo has delayed selling De Beers due to the diamond industry's challenges caused by downbeat Chinese demand and increased competition from synthetic stones. Despite this, Anglo still sees De Beers as a valuable asset, and they're prepared to wait for the right buyer. And it seems like those buyers are knocking at their door. Now, the company has since written down De Beers' value to about 52.5 billion rand and is exploring options, including listing the business or a demerger. But of course, a sale of the business remains the preferred option.
All right, I promise I was listening this time, and I will continue listening as you take us through what the markets are doing at this hour.
The trade remains choppy, with U.S. markets closing overnight mixed as traders await the outcome of those trade talks before making any moves. With that, the Nasdaq closed 0.33% higher, while the S&P and Dow Jones closed flat. Trade also mixed here at home, with the all share edging slightly higher, up 0.05% in yesterday's session. Local investors are eyeing the inflation report out tomorrow, and ahead of that print, the rand remains stable at 17.75 to the dollar this hour. Then lastly, in Asia, markets in the green as everyone eagerly awaits updates from Beijing and Washington as leaders prepare for day 2 of negotiations.
Ndawling, thank you. We'll catch up with you in the second hour of the show. That's Ndawling Lechela there. She'll come back just after 7:30 with more insights for you.
Africa Update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning to Sipho Mantula. Raz, let's start with issues to do with Russia and its involvement on the African continent and the ties with many African countries. I see you're saying that the Wagner Group, or is it the Wagner Group, are quitting Mali, but there's still a commitment on the part of the state of Russia to more and deeper relations with the African continent.
Refreshing morning to us and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. Despite, no matter the weather is very cold to us, Russia, on the eve of its National Day, they've announced that the Wagner Group have left Mali, and as they have also enhanced its economic and military ties in the continent. This came out from Moscow yesterday to us to say that Russia has stepped into what they call a geopolitical vacuum in West Africa. As we know that the Western powers have been having challenges post the military coups of 2020. But Russia's interest, as we have seen it in Mali, CAR, Equatorial Guinea, giving support post the exit of France. And at the same time, Kremlin also, Thulas, has been supporting with the paramilitary group, the Wagner group that has been helping in fight against jihadist group. But it seems that it's coming under the Africa Corps now. From Wagner group leaving Thulas, as you know, one of his leaders died in 2023, but now they are using the Africa Corps as one of the areas that they will be assisting many African countries. And I've said before, we have seen many leaders of the Sahel and some of West African leaders going to Russia to strengthen those ties. Hence, I said, just on the eve of Russian National Day, we see Russia re-emphasizing its geopolitics in the African continent.
Yeah. Here's a voice we haven't heard from in a while, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed. Tell me about him and his criticisms of some of the media in the country.
The Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is saying that media is like fire. It can either destroy or build. But it is important for Ethiopian media outlets or journalists to work on serving the national interest of the country and not their own self-interest. And I think he is raising this to us based on that as he was engaging with the media, it's about the government and commercial media collaboration on what he says on national development efforts that he has done as the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. And this has been, has been criticized for many years. You look at the challenges of Ethiopia outside the continent, how media has been ranking it, but also he looked at the World Press Freedom Index, where Ethiopia was ranked at 145 out of 180, meaning the media freedom are those issues that Abiy Ahmed was raising in terms of how the media must be patriotic and they must also follow the national interest of the country.
Was it Peter Tosh that sang legalize marijuana right here in Jamaica? Is that what's echoing in Windhoek in Namibia, legalize marijuana? Or perhaps, do away with the outdated laws, even if it's not an out legalization?
I think they are looking at the same thing that South Africa went through almost, I will say, in 2018, but also in 2001, when we had the first Prince case, Prince Gareth Prince from Cape Town to us. Namibia is looking at the 1971 laws that were used. Remember, Namibia was once occupied by South Africa to us. Now, there are 4 groups in Namibia, 4 cannabis advocacy groups that are calling for the reform of the cannabis law in that country. They are saying they are outdated to us. As I said to you, the use of 1971 laws in that country. And they are trying to emphasize the medicinal aspect of it as they are raising many laws in the Namibian constitution. Also, they are going to clauses in their constitution on personal liberty, dignity, the fair trial, equality before the law, privacy. And I think, like I say, privacy, they are using South African case study of Prince 3, but in South Africa, there are issues of culture, religion that has been justified on the use of the sacred herb Thulas. But as you have said, this has become a common issue in the SADC region in Africa, Thulas, after the issue of looking at cannabis for growth. Even the president has established the Pakisa group, Thulas, you will recall. That he's trying to look at, but we're still searching where is that 140,000 jobs, of cannabis industry. But Namibia is looking at a South African model of cannabis for private purpose act.
Yeah. So let's talk about your historical archives, Sipho. 10 June 1990. This was a time of great change in South Africa. We were getting on that irreversible path towards a transition to democracy.
Absolutely. It was 35 years ago, and you look at the return of Mayor Dr. Zenzile Makeba, the late on this day, that she was actually personally invited back by Mandela to come back home. Mazi didn't want to come back to us, as she has seen 30 years living in exile. And when she was welcomed at the then Transmart Airport, now Oliver Tambo, it was Sipho Mabuse, it was Tembim Charlie Jones, it was Brenda Fassi who were there. And I think Maralo, if I'm not mistaken, to us. What is important is that when she came back to us, she had to do a lot of things. You will recall she has to do a documentary, she has to be on the Cry Freedom. She had to do a lot. In 2004, she was voted 38 in the top 100 of great South Africans. But she was not treated well, Thulas, even when she came back. 1994 incident that happened at the inauguration of Tata. How she was treated even before she passed in 2008, Mira Makeba. Those are the issues that you will come back home, but home doesn't receive you even when you left at those conditions in the late 60s, going with King Kong. Remember when she left Thulas? That's for 3 months, but 3 months tend to be 3 decades. So very important when you think of this cultural emissary and ambassador. I will always say that there's none after Miriam Makeba, and there shall be none even before. If you look at her character and what she has done. And as we knew, Thulas, we have a Miriam Makeba cultural diplomacy project that we are pushing at all levels. Asante sana Thulas, associated in the conversation, SFM observing the Soweto uprising.
Beautiful, man. Thank you for that. That's Sipho Mandula with your Africa update for today.
Welcome back to the sun-drenched shores of St. Marie, where the beaches are beautiful and the murders are mysterious. It's Death in Paradise Season 7. New cases, quirky suspects, and D.I. Jack Mooney, who's still figuring out the island and how to drink coconut water gracefully. Catch the show where paradise meets puzzling crime, because even in paradise, someone always has a secret. Death in Paradise Season 7, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on S3. S3, open up.
They say sharing is caring, but not in football. Bafana Bafana and Club M refuse to share points. They're both hunting for vital points. This is the Hollywood Bets South Africa 2025. Catch the spectacular action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mauritius. This Tuesday, 10 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
14 minutes to 7 on this Tuesday. Major changes are in the offing for the country's laws and policies for the employment of foreign nationals across economic sectors. This follows Cabinet's recent approval of the National Labour Migration Policy, NLMP, and the Employee Services Amendment Bill. Among what the two measures will do will be to allow the Minister of Employment and Labour to set limits on the number of documented migrant workers that can be employed in a workplace and an economic sector. The measures have been welcomed by organizations such as COSATU, who say the limits are crucial for an economy battling dangerously high and rising unemployment levels. So let's speak to Solipetwe, who is the General Secretary of COSATU. Good morning to you and thank you for your time. What problem do you believe this bill and this policy will solve with regard to migration and its impact on the labor market?
Well, thank you very much and good morning to yourself and to the listeners. What we hope this policies or legislation would be able to resolve is the problem that we are facing in this country of employing people from outside other countries and with no document, on the basis that employers who are doing those things, they are trying to practice what or to push what is called running away from respecting the legislation that we have in this country, and that creates a problem for us as workers. It creates a problem for the country because people are not being paid according to the requirement. For an example, the legislation of the national minimum wage is being disrespected, the QAIDA, the occupational health and safety, all the legislation that governs the workers in this country are being disrespected. They're doing that for this thing that we normally call the cheap labor. So we hope that this policy and legislation, once it's monitored seriously so monitored. Also, from our side as trade unions in South Africa, we monitor that, we make sure that we report any incident that or any employer who does not respect the legislation. It will be able to resolve the problems that we're facing so that we're able to continue with the creating of dealing with the triple challenges, inequalities, poverty, and unemployment that we're facing in this country. So that's our view as COSATU.
Yeah. In which sectors do you believe the impact of these measures will be felt the most? The one is a policy white paper that has been approved for implementation. The other, being the bill that still needs to go to Parliament. It will take some time for it to actually come into effect and becoming applicable law. But overall, which sectors do you believe will be impacted in the kind of positive manner that you anticipate?
The sectors that are facing challenges as workers or as organized labor is the farming sector, the hospitality sector, the security sector, and the domestic workers. We've got 4 critical sectors, but also include construction. That's where this thing's got a serious problem. And once it is implemented and it's followed, as I said, it's monitored properly, as it says that the minister would have that responsibility to put up a policy that is going to monitor these things. It will be able to resolve those problems. As we speak now, last week I visited a farmer somewhere in the northwest. I found that foreigners or people who are out of South Africa, they are buying jobs for 2,000 rand given to the person who's employing people, 2,000 rand, because they've got no document and all those things. And I've reported this matter to the Department of Employment of Labour. We are planning to go to that farm and we'll go with the police. That person who's doing these things, he must be arrested. Well, it's very difficult for these workers to tell us, no, this thing is done by so and so and so and so. But we will find it. The employer must tell us what procedure does he has in terms of making sure that people who are employed are people who've got document, are allowed, they are in South Africa properly. We are not against foreigners, we are not against anybody to be employed. And this issue of the scarce skills, people run away from implementing the legislation, employ people and say the people of South Africa don't have skills. But they can't produce a report that says, so and so in this province, in this farm, I needed a person who's got an experience, got skills in terms of driving a tractor. What skills do you want me to have to drive a tractor except the driver's license of driving a tractor?
Yeah.
But there's nothing else. But they go out and employ people and say it's because of skills. But when you say, can this person produce that skills? There's nothing. So employers would have to be monitored. Right.
I want to throw in just one quick question that has to do with, I noticed that the limitations and quotas on the employment of foreign nationals will apply in terms of these 2 measures to documented foreign nationals in some sectors. Don't we risk driving more people then to go the route of illegal migration and undocumented, being employed in ways other than going through the route of applying for a work permit, because there'll be more controls on that. So when you control that, don't you risk driving people to the alternative illegal market?
I'm not sure about your question, because I'm driving. I didn't hear what's the question on what you are saying.
No, that's fine. I think let's leave.
I think let's leave it so that I answer your question properly, because I'm driving.
No, it's fine, Mr. Petwe. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I think I'm happy for us to leave it at this point. It's a conversation that I'm pretty sure will continue. We'll have other opportunities to engage with the General Secretary of COSATU. That is Soli Petwe there.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Our top traffic story, southern parts of KZN, Kokstad region, not drivable this morning. Avoid any plans to travel through the Kokstad area. Multiple routes under snow and heavy snow as well. That would include the M2 from Harding to Kokstad, the M2 from Mount Aleph up into Kokstad around Brooks Neck area. Brooks Neck, the Kokstad 617 out towards Kingscote. That is currently obstructed. And the R56 Kokstad through to Matatial Cedarville area also under snow and not passable. There's no sort of major route going in and out of Kokstad that is drivable this morning, so please don't attempt. You could be stuck there for some time. R56 south of Barclay East remains closed as well due to snow. Penhook Pass is open, but motorists and truckers urged to proceed with extreme care. Just into Durban, keep in mind it's the first morning you'll be dealing with the closure of Stapleton Road at the M13 bridge. That's going to be majorly disruptive. It already is. Some very heavy traffic coming up from the Moseley Park, north of Dean, North Park side, up on through Sarnia and on the M7. It's very heavy. Also, a big backlog of traffic from Pavilion going out to Pinetown as well. A breakdown in the roadworks near Paradise Valley causing that backlog. Masabalali Yangwa remains closed. They're still busy dismantling the finish area from Sunday's comrades. And the M4 into Durban all clogged up, just coming up off the N2 up towards Basel February as you head towards the Clarewood area. Joburg side all fairly standard at this stage, but it includes a breakdown on the N3 before Van Buren. So Germiston, Alberton on your way out to Bedfordview, very heavy today. And Cape Town, Mitchell's Plain, always busy, but this morning even busier. The traffic lights on Highlands Drive at the M7 are down, and there's a crash on AZ Berman at Highlands Drive on the other side of Mitchell's Plain. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Bafana are preparing for the World Cup qualifiers with 2 international friendlies against Tanzania on Friday, 6 June, and Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June 2025 in Polokwane. Both matches will be at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium at 7:30 p.m. The tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 60 Rand for adults, 30 Rand for children under 12, and scholars in uniform. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
5 minutes to 7 on this Tuesday. The search for a light aircraft that went missing in KwaZulu-Natal on Sunday has sadly ended in tragedy. The KwaZulu-Natal MEC Cindiso Duma and the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center, which led the search effort, confirming yesterday that the plane had been found with all 3 people on board deceased. Among those who died was a student pilot. The plane had taken off from Durban's Virginia Airport on Sunday afternoon and was last tracked flying over Ladysmith and heading towards Pietermaritzburg or Greytown. So let's speak to Ndabezinhle Sibiya, who speaks on behalf of the MEC for Transport and Human Settlements in KwaZulu-Natal. Ndabezinhle, good morning and thank you for your time. What do we know about the circumstances leading up to the fatal crash?
Well, thank you very much, Thulasizwe. Very sad indeed, as you have pointed out in your intro. Well, the light aircraft, was traveling between eThekwini, obviously going to Gauteng, but unfortunately, it had to, go to Ladysmith for refueling. But I'm very, cautious not to get into the technicalities because. The Civil Aviation Authority has taken over the investigation as announced yesterday by the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center that they've handed over the matter to the SAPS as well as to the South African Civil Aviation Authority. So they'll be managing all the investigations moving forward. And the statement that they issued yesterday, they indicated that within 30 days they'll be in a position to publish a report. But what is important is to indicate that the MEC, sponsor Duma, he mandated us very early yesterday morning to interact with the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center as well as the families of the pilots. We are saddened by the fact that a very young and energetic student pilot, Ms. Nobile Biela, sadly passed on, as you pointed out. We are reaching out to the families of the other 2 deceased, and this morning the MEC has said we must make sure that before 12 o'clock we are able to get hold of them. So that is the work that we're going to do. Very sad, I must say.
Yeah. Just around the factual circumstances, can you confirm reports that this plane was one of 3 that were apparently flying in some kind of a loose formation from Durban to Wonderboom in Pretoria? Because, I saw reports that were talking about actually 2 of the 3 having crashed. Of course, the one being the one in which the 3 people died, and the other, it would seem there were no fatalities, and one landed safely. I just want clarity without going into the details of the investigation. But is that the case, that there were 3 of them?
Well, that is what the Accident and Incident Investigation Division, has pointed out in a statement which is public, they issued yesterday. So you are spot on. This is what has happened. And look, this is very sad. For us, as the province of KwaZulu-Natal, the Department of Transport is to be with the families and of the deceased. The Biela family, they are there in Gauteng, and today the mother, Mrs. Ama Biela, will be traveling to KwaZulu-Natal. They are from Umlazi section, in Durban, and it is a very, tragic accident for her, and she's devastated. We were talking to her. And her sisters are also out of KwaZulu-Natal. One of her sisters is in Limpopo, so she'll also be traveling back to KwaZulu-Natal just to start the mourning process. And we are getting involved in such matters as the Department of Transport, because in April, the MEC Slonso Duma, indicated in the budget speech that as guided by the Economic Regulations for Transport Act, as the department, we have to be involved in the aviation sector. If you look at KwaZulu-Natal, we've got Market, already Umkhuze, Richards Bay, and Virginia airports. That is where we're getting involved as the department. The aviation industry is very important. And the youngsters who are getting into the aviation industry are an asset to the province of KwaZulu-Natal as well as the whole country. As you know that, aviation sector was affected by COVID-19. And we are, playing a role as the Department of Transport in terms of resuscitating different sectors of the economy, including the aviation industry.
All right, so Top, let's leave it there. That's Ndabezinhle Sibiya, who is spokesperson for the MEC of Transport and Human Settlements in KwaZulu-Natal. Brings us to 7 a.m. Let's check in now with Ann Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, police captain accused of rape granted bail, and road users urged to be cautious amid icy conditions. Good morning. The 59-year-old police officer accused of raping a police trainee at the Pretoria West SAPS Training Academy intends to plead not guilty. He was granted bail in the Pretoria Magistrates Court after spending a month in custody. The officer allegedly threatened the 20-year-old with a misconduct charge for failing to salute him unless she slept with him. He also faces a sexual assault charge linked to another trainee in March. His lawyer Andrew Mwaba confirmed that his client will plead not guilty.
So indeed, we confirm that he is going to plead not guilty. And I can tell you that we have done our own groundwork, and we will be able to acquit him of all these allegations that are leveled against him.
One of the men charged with the murder of former ANC Youth League Secretary General Cindiso Magaka has confessed to the murder. Thulasizwe made his confession before the Pietermaritzburg High Court. Magaka was shot in July 2017 and succumbed to his injuries in hospital. In his admission, Ngwengwa implicated other people who have not been charged. NPA spokesperson Natasha Ramkison Kara
found Ngwengwa guilty based on his admissions and convicted him accordingly. The case against him was remanded to the 30th of June 2025 for sentencing. The case against the other two accused will return to court on the 19th of June 2025 for a new indictment to be served on them.
State prosecutor in the Senzo Mehiwa murder trial, George Baloy, has brought a formal application at the High Court in Pretoria to introduce additional photos of some of the accused. 5 men are on trial for the 2014 murder of the Bafana Bafana captain, who was killed while at Kelly Kumalo's parental home in Vosloorus, east of Johannesburg. Some of the photos include selfies of accused number 3, Ntobisi Ngube, allegedly with dreadlocks and a gold tooth. Features that match witness descriptions of the alleged shooter. Baloyi says it's in the interest of justice to submit the images as they give a clearer picture of how some of the accused looked in 2014.
The state intends to present the additional photo of accused number 3 to show other features of accused number 3 that were canvassed during cross-examination by Advocate Mnisi, such as the gold tooth. Insofar as accused number 2 is concerned, the state seeks to show more photos as further appearance of accused number 2 as came up in the cross-examination of Brigadier Gininda, and the same argument obtains for number 1, my lord, that the state wants to show his general appearance.
Advocate Charles Mnisi was not present in court yesterday, and therefore the trial has adjourned until this morning to allow him to respond to the application. The N3 toll concession is urging road users planning to travel on the N3 toll route to keep a close watch on warnings about bitterly cold weather, thunderstorms, damaging winds, and the possibility of snowfall along high-lying parts of the route. The weather conditions may impact road safety and could result in traffic congestion, delays, and temporary road closures. The N3 toll concession's Tanya Dugra.
We urge travellers to be prepared for any eventuality by carrying emergency provisions whenever embarking on a journey. Food, water, medication, warm clothing and blankets, backup power banks and first aid kits should always be packed in your vehicle. Follow the instructions of law enforcement or emergency services officials. Slow down, increase your following distances, keep your headlights turned on, and always allow yourself adequate time to respond to any hazardous situation that may arise.
And finally, President Cyril Ramaphosa will embark on a visit to the Presidential Youth Flagship Programs in Tshwane this morning. Ramaphosa will engage with youth beneficiaries of the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention and Presidential Employment Flagship Programs. He will visit Sefako Magaka Primary School in Saulsville, the South African Creative Industries Incubator in Easterust, and the Foundation for Professional Development in Pretoria East. Spatle Mota reports.
President Ramaphosa says today's visits will highlight innovative implementation models and public-private partnerships that are delivering dignified high-quality employment and skilling outcomes for the youth. Ramaphosa will interact directly with youth beneficiaries, educators and implementing partners and see firsthand how the programs are reshaping labor market access for the country's most excluded youth. The program will begin at 10 a.m. at Sefako Magaka Primary School.
Recapping the top story, the 59-year-old police officer accused of raping a police trainee at the Pretoria West SAPS Training Academy intends to plead not guilty. He was granted bail in the Pretoria Magistrates Court after spending a month in custody. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
With all the recent headlines, it's time for some good news. A 25-year-old man, Tyler, is smiling all the way to the bank. He switched to Outsurance and now saves a whopping 718 Rand a month on the insurance for his 2021 Ford Figo 1.5. Get a quote today and see how much Outsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 08600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, cricket, the Proteas urged to embrace the moment ahead of the World Test Championship final at Lord's. And in soccer, Coach Hugo Broos rings in a new era, fresh faces and a new captain. Details just before 7:30.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
It's coming up to 8 minutes after 7 on this Tuesday. It is great to be in your company. We're into the second hour of the Morning Brief here on SAFM 104 to 107. It is a cold morning. It is a cold, freezing cold morning in many parts of the country. When I was driving in, it was at about 3 degrees Celsius, and I was counting myself lucky because it could be worse. You could be in areas like Berkeley East, in the Eastern Cape, and all these other areas that Rob Byrne has been mentioning in the traffic where you have actual snow that has fallen. So do take care and stay warm. Here's what's coming up on the show in this hour. We'll touch on the loan that has been extended by the World Bank to South Africa, $1.5 billion, but 26.5 billion in rand terms. So we'll be talking about, what it will be used for. We are told that it will be directed towards modernizing key state-owned enterprises like Eskom and Transnet. But what does that mean exactly? And how does that help to drive the structural reforms that we've been crying about, that we've been saying would help this economy grow? So in the next few minutes, I'll be in conversation with Professor Yanni Rousseau of the Wits Business School, and we'll be unpacking all of that, including the implications of this loan on our already large, debt book. In the sense of what we owe people as opposed to what people owe us. And then immediately after that conversation, we'll be touching on politics and talking about the ousting of Vuyo Zungula as president of the African Transformation Movement, and in comes Professor Caesar Nongunga, who is the head of the 12 Apostles Church in Christ. He is now the president of the African Transformation Movement, and Vuyo Zungula will continue in Parliament. We'll be posing questions to Zamantshona about what is really behind that move that has been made by that political party. And then a bit later on, we'll be touching on something that is a bit of a concern for the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, saying that there's been a bit of a trend of people spreading fake news about the application or otherwise of the Administrative Adjudication of Road Traffic Offences, AARTO, the AARTO system. So we'll be touching base on where does that system and its implementation, where does that stand at the moment, so that we ensure that you do not fall for the scams and fake news. In all of that, I want to hear from you. Do weigh in on these and other conversations that may be exercising your mind, and you can do that by calling me on 086 000 2032, or you can send me a WhatsApp voice note on 061 410 4107. The second hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
It's Roll or Be Rolled in the Tastemaster SA this Tuesday evening at 7:30 on SABC2. Elimination Week is all about pasta. After learning the art of making fresh pasta from the team at Scala in Cape Town, contestants must present their own unique spin on this Italian classic. Who will earn a spot in the next round and who's going home? Find out on the Tastemaster SA Tuesday evenings at 7:30. Repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. on SABC2.
Specsavers Audiology, South Africa's largest audiology group, brings you the all-new Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aids. Experience cutting-edge features at a price you can afford. For a limited time only, buy one Clarity Pro rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one and get 50% off the second. Visit specsavers.co.za to find your nearest store and ask for Clarity Pro today. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Bafana are preparing for the World Cup qualifiers with 2 international friendlies against Tanzania on Friday, 6 June, and Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June 2025 in Polokwane. Both matches will be at the new Peter Mokaba Stadium at 7:30 p.m. The tickets are available at Ticket Pro at 60 Rand for adults, 30 Rand for children under 12, and scholars in uniform. For more details, visit safa.net and Bafana on X.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAFM, let's talk.
Government's efforts to drive structural reforms in support of economic growth have just received a boost, with the World Bank approving the country for a loan to the tune of $1.5 billion, and that amounts to about 26.5 billion rand. The funds will be directed towards modernizing key state-owned enterprises, including Eskom and Transnet, in order to enhance energy security and freight transport capacity. So let's speak to Professor Yanni Rousseau, who's an economist from Wits Business School. Good morning to you, Prof, and thank you for your time. Will the loan have the desired effect of modernizing these key state-owned enterprises like Eskom and Transnet, and why is that a priority area?
Good morning to the Thulasizwe and good morning to the listeners. It is a priority, of course, to modernize Eskom to make sure that the country never suffers load shedding again. And then in terms of the logistics industries, if we can get our railroads and harbors to work optimally, it would help our export effort, which would result in higher economic growth, and with that will come job creation. So from that perspective, the focus of utilization of the funds cannot be faulted.
To the extent that the impact of an inefficient Eskom and an inefficient Transnet needs to be spelled out. Please spell out for us the implications thereof in our economy. We just came out with, the numbers that came out just recently, where growth was at 0.1%. Quarter on quarter, to what extent do the inefficiencies of these two entities weigh in on the numbers?
Well, a lack of uninterrupted power supply owing to load shedding. Load shedding makes investment in South Africa unattractive. On the other side, railroads and harbors not working optimally will make it difficult for exporters to export their produce and sell it to the rest of the world. And both those aspects have a negative impact on economic growth. However, talking of the World Bank loan, I've tried to find the full conditions, repayment schedules, interest rates, etc. in respect of this loan, and I could not find the information before this interview with you. I would like to see the conditions of the loan. What will the interest rate be? Over what period should it be repaid, etc. I am uncomfortable if such information is not published for general information, because after all, South African taxpayers will have to repay this loan in due course, and in the interim, taxpayers will have to pay interest on this loan.
Yeah.
So I want to see those conditions.
You're absolutely right, Prof. I also did exactly the same. I saw the portal where the World Bank will put it up in fuller detail, where they've put up other previous loans, including the one that was approved and dispersed in 2023 in November, thereabouts. But I just assumed that this one is yet to be put up on that portal. But you take me to an interesting point, because the question I was asking myself earlier on is, hang on, haven't we been saying budget after budget speech after budget speech, that we are heavily indebted, such that the levels of debt in our country and cost of servicing debt is now crowding out our ability to spend on programs such as health and education? In fact, spending on debt outstrips now those programs as budget lines, as lines in the budget, the national budget. 1.2 billion rand a day is what we are spending on servicing debt. Is this the kind of debt we should be incurring, where perhaps you say it's responsible borrowing, or are we sinking ourselves even deeper into debt?
We can only answer that question, Thulasizwe, once we see the conditions of the loan, the interest rate payable on the loan, and the period of the loan. I should also add that we live in South Africa. I'm also very suspicious in South Africa about state capture and corruption. So I would also want to see the controls over the distribution of the money to make sure that some of the money would not go into state capture and corruption, but the money is indeed used for what it has been borrowed in the first instance. So as you by now surmised, I have certain hesitations about the loan, and therefore I want full transparency around the loan in the interest of South African taxpayers. There's no reason for the government to try and keep too many things confidential and away from taxpayers who carry the bill in the final instance.
All right, Prof, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Professor Yanni Rousseau, who is an economist at the Wits Business School.
Upgrade your TV game with the SABC TV License Rewards. It's your golden ticket to VIP treatment. Imagine signing up at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za, racing through a few steps, and bam! Instant reward. Just for being you. Plus, pocket up to 500 Rand back. That's the cherry on top. But wait, it's not just about the cash. We're talking about sweet deals and epic rewards. Think discounts on all your favorite things, from shopping to travel and entertainment. Your payment unlocks a world of fun. So, why wait? Dive into the excitement. Join the SABC's TV License Rewards at sabctvlicenserewards.co.za. Hit those buttons and watch your TV experience level up. T's and C's apply. Remember, TV license fees aren't just payments, they make a difference.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bucky to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
They say sharing is caring, but not in football. Bafana Bafana and Club M refuse to share points. They're both hunting for vital points. This is the Hollywood Bets South Africa 2025. Catch the spectacular action of Southern African football. South Africa versus Mauritius. This Tuesday, 10 June at 2:30 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and SABC One. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
7:20. We're just battling a little bit with getting Zaman Jona on the line, who speaks on behalf of the African Transformation Movement. We wanted to touch on the decision to move Vuyo Zungula from the position of president of the party and have him as the caucus leader in parliament, and having Professor Caesar Nongunga as the new president of the ATM. But never mind that, we're going to come back to that story a bit later on. We do need to cover another story you will have heard in N. Musa's bulletin there about the guilty plea entered into by one of the accused in the 2017 murder of Cindiso Magaka, the former ANC Youth League deputy president. Was it deputy president or Secretary General Cindiso Magaka? So let's speak to Thabiso Zulu, who was a friend of Cindiso Magaka and has agitated and campaigned for justice for the killing of Cindiso Magaka. He joins me now on the line. Thabiso, good morning. Thank you for your time. So I don't know, just your overall reaction to this guilty plea that has been entered into by Sibusiso Ngwenga, and where he gives a bit more detail and color, including names of people that he worked with and people that he says, allegedly at this point, he alleges that they were the ones who commissioned this murder. I say allegedly in that he admits his role, but of course those people will have to answer for themselves. But overall, your reaction?
I think it was the poet Yakov Yevashenko who said when people were speaking about the marvels of the buildings of St. Petersburg, but he asked if people knew
how much it took, what toll it took from many Russians to build such. It's the same thing. People expressing themselves that it's great that this plea, bargain, this plea have been entered into and the person has been found guilty. But they don't know what went through with the family, what went through with many of us, and the pain, the things that we had to endure. But it's a great move. It's a halfway mark to us. We haven't reached where we're supposed to reach. Other people are supposed to face charges. But the most important thing that we've always been maintaining over the years is that we're not interested more on the people that pulled the trigger and the middlemen. We're more interested in the political gangsters that organize the whole thing. We're more interested in the enforcers, the state agents who used the state money to assassinate. Because Cindiso Magaka, as we have always been maintaining over the years, was not only killed by political actors, was killed by the state, because the state agents and the state agents were involved in procuring the firearm and in making sure that the whole thing was being covered up.
And a key paragraph, and I suppose it's inevitable that this has become public information, this section 220 admission that has been entered into by Mr. Ngengwa. And a key paragraph there talks to people that he says had commissioned this murder, and he talks about people such as the former city manager at the time, as well as Mr. Mluleki Ndobe also being mentioned there.
It's one of the things that we have always maintained, that even if the people that are in the dock were in the dock, but the shadows of these characters, the two characters, the Black Mamba, as Mluleki Ndobe was called, and Rambo, as his very Pantis Kosana was called, will be looming large in the dock. And it has always been like that. We have always maintained over the years that it's them, but it's not only them. They were assisted by senior members of my own organization, the organization of my forefathers. Remember that Mluleki Ndobe even went to the Moerane Commission to represent my own organization and try and claim that the killings were as a result of a third force. Maybe he was right, because he knew that he worked with the former apartheid agents, former apartheid junta agents, nationalist junta agent that had killed our own comrades in Swaziland and were given the pardon. Then they also were involved in the killing of Cindiso Magaka by procuring this the AK-47 and procuring the Mercedes-Benz, the AK-47 that was carried by the late Kainkani Jabulani Mdunge.
Yeah. So at this point, I suppose it's responsible to say that this is contained in this plea by the person who's now pleaded guilty. But of course, the state would need to prove its own case if this allegation were to be pursued. So in fairness to the people that are mentioned.
Makuj, I'm not a court of law. I'm an aggrieved person. Yes, 100%. You as a presenter and representing SAFM and SAPC,
absolutely.
You must do that. But any person who feels that what I'm saying, I've been saying these things over the years publicly. Any person who feels aggrieved must go to court and sue me.
100%.
And I've been saying these things, and I'm not going to change, because we are not in the Garden of Eden going around picking up fruits. People died here, and we're putting things as they are.
100%, Thabiso. I was just doing my own bit. But just lastly, then tell me, in terms of the family, the Cindiso Magaka, the Magaka family. I don't know if you've been interacting with them. I know you have been over a period of time, but what does this represent for them? Does it give them an opportunity for closure, or will there be no closure until the other elements finally fit in?
Not yet, Thulas. There are a lot of things that we are not saying publicly. There are a lot of things that will be rolling over the next few days. We are launching what we call Operation One Stone in many beds. There will be a lot of other people that are still going to fall as a result of that, in terms of cover-ups, in terms of monies that were paid, in terms of blood money, and a lot of other things that we haven't spoken about publicly, but we are going to be revealing all that going forward. No retreat, no surrender.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time this morning. That's Cindiso Zulu, who is a known, campaigner around this issue of justice for Cindiso Magaka, talking to me after one of the accused, Busiso Ngwenga, entered an agreement, a plea bargain agreement, and also made admissions in terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, in which, of course, you are required to give more detail about your own involvement and the circumstances of the commission of the crime. So that person will now be sentenced, having been found guilty based on his admissions that he has made.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning to you, Zai. So the World Test Championship is coming up and the Proteas are being urged to, quote-unquote, embrace the moment.
Yeah, because we have never been there before to this WTC final. So this is like cricket's Wimbledon, and we've got the front row seat together with the all-format head coach of South Africa, Shukri Conrad. He's issued a rallying cry ahead of the championship final against Australia, all happening at Lord's in London from tomorrow to the 15th of June. He's urged his side to embrace the moment and not shy away from the occasion.
We're here, and that's all that matters. We get a chance to walk away as the World Test champions. Playing Australia doesn't get any bigger than that. So, yeah, what's gone before counts for absolutely nothing at the minute. We're quietly confident going into this game that we can pull one over them. We're a confident bunch. We play well as a unit. If there are any vulnerabilities amongst them, I'm sure we'd be able to exploit that.
In the meantime, South Africa's Hashim Amla and Graham Smith, as well as India's Mahendra Singh Dhoni, were among 7 new inductees into the International Cricket Council Hall of Fame. Also included were Australia's Matthew Hayden, New Zealand's Daniel Vettori, and former Pakistan captain Sana Mir and England's Sarah Taylor, recognised for their contribution to the women's game. The induction ceremony took place at London's Abbey Road Studios, where the Beatles recorded most of their hit songs. Soccer, Bafana coach Hugo Broos shaking things up for tonight's friendly against Mozambique in Polokwane. After a 0-0 draw with Tanzania, Broos plans a squad rotation, including fresh faces and handing the captain's armband to Nkosinathi Sibisi. Now, he praised the debutants' discipline, admitting there were areas that need fine-tuning, but stressed the low-pressure environment is perfect for experimentation. Broos said the match will be a real test of the team's depth.
You see also in that team there are two, three very good players who can decide the game. At the other side, it's a different team than Tanzania. It's more a team that wants to play football because they have the players to play football. So in that part of the game, it will be a little bit more, how can I tell it, comfortable.
And finally, cycling. Italy's Jonathan Milan outsprinted the field to take victory in Stage 2 of the 2025 Criterium du Dauphiné and take over the lead in the general classification from Stage 1 winner Tadej Pogačar of Slovenia. We'll be riding back top of the hour. For more sport, I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, chairpersons of Parliament's governance oversight committees have highlighted failure of leadership and systems, as well as organised crime within the public service for the dire state of financial health of local government. The chairpersons were briefing the media on their oversight work. A 12-year-old boy has been charged with culpable homicide and driving without a license at the Brakpan Magistrates Court east of Johannesburg. A 14-year-old boy died after being hit by a vehicle that was allegedly being driven by the minor at the weekend. And the 59-year-old police officer accused of raping a police trainee at the Pretoria West SAPS Training Academy intends to plead not guilty. He was granted bail in the Pretoria Magistrates Court after spending a month in custody. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAFM.
guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Top story remains the situation southern part of KZN, the Kokstad area. Please don't try and get through Kokstad this morning. You're not going to be able to do it. The snow very thick and very heavy overnight last night. All your multiple routes down that side are currently under heavy snow and not passable. That's the N3 as you go. That's the N2 as you go from Harding through to Kokstad. It is also Kokstad through the Brooks Neck, so across from KZN into Eastern Cape. That is snowed under as well. You've also got the 617 that links you from Kokstad through to Underberg at Kingscote, just north of Kokstad. That is closed, and the Kokstad-Matatial Road also shut as well. So no travel at this stage through Kokstad. Just across the border in the Eastern Cape, the Barclay Pass seems to be the major route that is snowed under. That is closed. All other passes in the higher ground, you will need to take some special caution getting through slippery conditions. Durban really busy today. A crash on the N3 outbound at Paradise Valley. Very heavy from Spaghetti Junction. That'll also have an impact on the N2, trying to get through Spaghetti Junction onto the N3 outbound. Also a breakdown after Mgena Road in towards 4 level on the N2 southbound. First morning that you're dealing with the closure of Stapleton Road. So there's a lot of congestion around that closure in and through the Pinetown area. Very busy coming out of Pretoria down to Joburg. Crash near Boerta Avenue on the M1 South. Traffic parking back through to Gaasfontein. Then a breakdown at Buccleuch, the bottom end of the N1. That's basically joining up a queue from Old Joburg Road all the way through this morning. And a breakdown at Van Buren. N3 North stays heavy coming out of Germiston and Alberton. Cape Town, broken down truck on the M1 out of town at Plattekloof Hill. That's slowing traffic quite badly this morning. Queues back to sort of Monte Vista territory. And a breakdown on the N2 inbound near the airport. Slowing traffic coming through from Kaya Leach. It's by the airport runway, that obstruction. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Dowling, good morning to you once again. Let's start with the figures coming through from PPC. Tell me about them and a jump in profits.
And this comes to us as it makes good on its turnaround strategy that included big cost-cutting initiatives. Now, while PPC's efforts to trim the fat is boosting its bottom line, with profits more than doubling, its top line is not doing well, as revenue fell 1.9%, and this was largely due to tough market conditions in most of the countries it operates in, including Zimbabwe, Botswana, and South Africa. Analysts, in the meantime, have expressed concerns about its prospects, highlighting the downbeat construction sector and competitiveness in the cement scene. Despite this, the group remains optimistic about the macro environment, expecting steady and slow improvements in the coming years. The company says it is well positioned to benefit from upcoming infrastructure projects and is set to start construction on a new integrated plant in the Western Cape in 2026, or rather in the 2026 financial year, with a spend of 3 billion rands over the next 2 years. This project is expected to drive the next step change in its turnaround strategy.
Staying with issues of construction and the infrastructure sector, tell me about Avenge and warnings about annual losses.
And it's just that, Thulas, the constraints and struggles within the construction sector really hurting Avenge, the group expecting to slip in the red, pointing to challenges in key infrastructure projects and operational pressures. The company cited cost overruns and delays on the Kidston Pumped Hydro project in Queensland, Australia, and the Jurong Regional Line project in Singapore as major contributors to the loss. Flooding on the Kidston project extended the timeline and increased costs, resulting in further losses from the Australia business unit. Now, despite these challenges, some of Avenge's business units continue to perform well. The New Zealand and Pacific Islands business unit is expected to maintain its profitability, while the built environments building segment is expected to report growth in operating earnings. The group also mentioned that it's still exploring options to improve its financial position, and so it is still negotiating the sale of its Moolmans mining business, that is its local unit, and is considering operations of the separation of its McConnell Dowell infrastructure arm, including a merger, sale, or independent listing.
Lastly, Dowling, how are the markets looking at this hour?
Kicking things off in Asia, markets mostly in the green and shrugging off China's downbeat trade data as investors await further details on the US-China trade talks, which are set to continue for a second day. The Japanese Nikkei leading the gains there, up over 0.9%. We are seeing green screens in the US after yesterday's mixed performance. Futures in positive territory with trade negotiations under the spotlight. Meanwhile, back at home, markets closed mixed yesterday, with the all share just making it into the green, closing 0.05% higher. Then over in the currency scene, the rand, one of the many currencies remaining strong amid a softer dollar. It's sitting at 17.75 due to the greenback this hour.
All right, thank you for that. That's Ntauleng Lechela. She'll be back with one more update just after 8:30, in which update, of course, she will give you a sense of the kind of trading day you can expect in the markets today.
We love rating things, our phones, our cars, but our health? Your health lets you do what you love with the people you love. So who are you staying healthy for, and how can you improve your health? Choose Dis-Chem Life, the life cover that helps you live a healthier, more rewarding, longer life with regular health checks. Visit dischemlife.co.za now. Dis-Chem Life. Choose a better partner for life. Dis-Chem Life is an authorized FSP 50594, underwritten by Guardrisk Life, a licensed life insurer, FSP 76. T's and C's apply.
From city streets to dirt trails, introducing the new Isuzu MU-X. Sleek enough for the city, tough enough for the mountains. With advanced all-terrain drive, 360-degree camera, and upgraded suspension to take on any journey. The new Isuzu MU-X, now including the new Onyx XT. It's an SUV with 4x4 capabilities, ready for anything. Experience the new Isuzu MU-X at your nearest dealership today.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
With all the recent headlines, it's time for some good news. A 25-year-old man, Tyler, is smiling all the way to the bank. He switched to OUTsurance and now saves a whopping 718 Rand a month on the insurance for his 2021 Ford Figo 1.5. Get a quote today and see how much OUTsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 08600 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Thulasizwe Simelane on SAFM.
Yeah, let me take one or two of your voice notes now that you've been sending us on the various topics that we have raised. We did talk about the changes of leadership in the African transformation movement. We did not manage to get Zamantshona and speak to him, but you are at large to weigh in based on what you've heard. Let me take that voice note now that talks to that.
Good morning, Thulas. I'm not sure if ATM has ever held any elective conference. I know MK, they've never. But these two parties, they just shift around leaders without any, elective or election processes. And we are a democratic country, and these guys are vying to become, government at some point in time. How do they reconcile the two? Because they're not, democratic in their processes at this point in time.
Yeah, those are difficult questions. I do wish we had Zamantshona to answer them. But there's a lot of speculation. The ATM itself says this is about ensuring that they promote growth through the personality of Professor Caesar Nongunga, who, as I said, is the leader of the 12 Apostles Church in Christ, and the linkages between that church and the ATM have always been there and well known. In fact, if you are on social media, you will have seen a video that is circulating that has Professor Nongunga speaking about this change even before it happened and talking about, needing to reconcile the provisions of the constitution of the party with the situation in the church and ensuring that there are no ructions or differences that may occur that may lead to a division within the church. So there's that as well. And that's part of what I was hoping to put to Zamantshona had we managed to speak to him, to say to what extent is this influenced by looking out for the interests of the church by making this change. Let me take this one. It has to do with that crash that happened, the tragic crash that happened in KwaZulu-Natal that left 3 people dead.
Regarding the plane crash over the weekend and the student pilot that was killed, my question is, was the student pilot flying that aircraft at the time of the crash? If so, was there a licensed instructor on board that aircraft or a licensed pilot rated on the aircraft which they were flying in on board? If not, that student pilot was not allowed to carry any passengers. I think that needs to be investigated. Thank you. Nick Connell from KZN.
Yeah, thank you for that. Spot on. It's all of those questions that will need answering by the Civil Aviation Authority once they've done this investigation. But absolutely. I mean, I think even on a preliminary basis, it would be best practice for the Civil Aviation Authority to just give us a sense of the facts that are not in dispute, right? We can then talk about the factors that led to the crash once they've done their investigation. But I don't think it's asking for too much to say the facts that are not in dispute, who was flying the plane, who were the passengers, etc. And then we take it from there. Let me take another one of your voice notes that talks to the situation and the leadership change in the ATM.
Good morning, Thulasizwe. You're speaking to Anonymous in Durban. ATM has just signed its death warrant because we only know Zungula in that party. So he was synonymous with the party. So now this new reshuffling is a big mistake. RIP to them. Thank you, Anonymous in Durban.
Yeah, Anonymous, thank you for that. Let's see how it plays out, right? With Professor Cesar Nongunga. The ATM touts his leadership of the church and how the church has grown in territories beyond South Africa and says, actually, this is a leader. This is someone that will be able to drive growth, the political aspect of it, but the parliamentary aspect. And as I say, look out for that video. If you can, just look for it on social media. Even in that video, Professor Nongunga talks about Zungula would keep his position and all the entitlements and the perks that come with that position. But it is, at least according to that video, it is about managing the dynamics between who becomes the leader of the church versus who becomes the leader of the party and how those two influence each other. It was going to be quite an interesting conversation had we managed to get Zamantshona. But nevertheless, that's where we leave that for now. We'll make more time and we'll continue to engage with you a bit later on in the show.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane.
7:45 on this Tuesday. Let's turn to the story now. Widespread reports that claim that the Administrative Adjudication of Road Traffic Offences AARTO system is now fully effective. Those reports are false, according to the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, RTIA. Despite ongoing preparations for national rollout, only Johannesburg and Tshwane are currently operating under AARTO, and the much anticipated demerit system is still in development. So let's speak to Mondem Kalipi, who is spokesperson for the Road Traffic Infringement Agency. Good morning to you, and thank you for your time. So categorically, you can say that these reports that purport that the system has been rolled out nationally, they are false.
Good morning, Tula. Thank you for the time. I hope you can hear me well.
Yes, we can.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, the information that has been in circulation since last week around the rollout or the national rollout of AARTO and the points demerit system, they are all false. And as the Road Traffic Infringement Agency, the agency that is charged with the implementation of AARTO, we are really calling upon road users to take this information with a pinch of salt, because we are the custodians of the implementation of this law, which is the Administrative Adjudication of Road Traffic Offences Act. We are with the Department of Transport, and any word that talks to the implementation, to the expansion of AARTO beyond Johannesburg and Tshwane. It should really be expected to come from us. And there is quite a bit of a process that is involved there, Thula, because the process of the proclamation of this law really requires that us as the RTIA, through the Department of Transport, you are able to package all the necessary information in as far as the readiness on the implementation of AARTO is concerned. We package all that information, and the department is able to interface with the presidency so that they are able to be convinced that, yes, indeed, the country is ready to implement this legislation well beyond Tshwane and Joburg. And once they are ready, then they will ask the president to sign the proclamation for the national rollout of AARTO.
So to the extent that someone doesn't understand what we're talking about when we talk about the AARTO system, explain it to us in basic terms. What does it entail? What are the main features?
Yes, Thula, AARTO, those of us who live in Johannesburg and Tshwane are in touch with it. It's a legislation, it's a road safety intervention that is really designed to decriminalize traffic offences or traffic violations, because to the rest of the country now, traffic violations are treated under the Criminal Procedure Act. So AARTO seeks to decriminalize AARTO infringements so that they are handled administratively. Those who are within Tshwane and Joburg will be familiar that you are given, if you have committed a violation or a traffic violation, you are given 32 days by the issuing authority, which could be TMPD or JMPD, to resolve that or to go and pay. If you fail to pay within 32 days, and then that traffic ticket gets to be escalated to us, that is the Road Traffic Infringement Agency. But the most important part of AARTO, Thula, is the fact that it provides road users with all the rights and options, in the sense that prior to the introduction of AARTO, if you have committed an infringement, you'll be expected to go and pay. But with AARTO, you are given an option to submit representations, that is to dispute an infringement, or you can even elect to go to court, or you can even request to pay in installments or redirect the ticket if you are owning a fleet of vehicles. So the introduction of AARTO, it talks to that. So if you fail to really to honor or to resolve your infringements, the system blocks you instead of taking you to court. You get blocked from renewing your driving license, you get blocked from renewing your driving license, or even your professional driving permit. So with introduction of AARTO, because now we are still talking with the first provisions of AARTO, but now with the rollout, we are talking about the introduction of the points demerit system, which talks to a time. If you really fail to honor or you accumulate demerit points, because each and every infringement, there is a set of demerits that are attached to it over and above the fine that will be expected to pay. So if you go and reach a threshold of 15 demerit points, let's say you drive without a safety belt, you get 3 demerit points. And another person drives, because it depends on the severity of an infringement. If one is caught driving under the influence of alcohol and you admit in court, you get convicted in court, and then there will be 6 demerit points. So if those demerit points grow up, Thula, and then they reach, let's say, 15 demerit points, once you exceed the 15 demerit points, you hit 16, your driving license gets to be suspended. And then you happen perhaps to go beyond that point again. Let's say you drive well for a period of 3 months, 6 months, your demerit points come down, because every time you drive well on the road,
so
demerit points need to be reduced.
The demerit point system, is that the one that at this point in Gauteng, Tshwane and Johannesburg, even in those municipalities, that has not kicked in. So that hasn't kicked in anyway.
Not yet, Thula, not yet.
And just for clarity, the number of demerit points that would lead to a suspension, is it 13 or 15?
It is proposed to be at 15, because one of the major issues you are dealing with now, Thula, is the finalization of the regulations. That part is not yet finalized, but the main proposal talks to 15 demerit points. But once you exceed,
lastly, Monde, do you get the sense that part of the reason why the fake news, the fake story about it having kicked in nationally was able to circulate, that underneath and beneath that is a sense of anxiety about drivers about this new system?
Yes, Tula, because one of some of our stakeholders were even saying that no, this information has been generated from outside of the country. It is very much concerning because it's creating a state of panic because we are still doing packaging, we are still consulting with various stakeholders so that everybody is ready. We are working with about 213 issuing authorities throughout the country. So it creates a sense of panic even among road users. Yeah. And what we are calling upon is that I think let's just really rest assured because AARTO is really a road safety intervention because the key thing at the end of the day is that we should reduce fatalities that occur on our roads.
Let's leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Mondem Kalipi, the spokesperson for the Road Traffic Infringement Agency.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. If you're just joining us, Kokstad is the area to avoid, southern parts of KZN. Even if you want to go and have a look at the snow, you could find yourself in all sorts of trouble and being stuck in frozen conditions. The N2 closed from Kokstad through to Harding. You're not going to get through there. Closed between Kokstad and Brooks Neck. That's the Mount Aleph section of the N2. Closed from Kokstad out to Matatial along the R56 and closed as well north of Kokstad is the R617 up towards Kingscote. That's the Underberg Road. So very, very substantial snowfalls. Roads closed. Please try and avoid any form of travel, and certainly that onlooking factor. Just stay well away from Kokstad. Up into Durban, high winds today, gusts up to 100 kilometres an hour in parts. You're seeing a lot of fallen trees between Hilton and Moy River along the N3, also the R103 at World's View. Around Hilton there's a fallen tree there as well. Very windy conditions, likely to cause a bit of havoc, I would think, around the harbour with trucks. I think there's a cut-off on those cranes of about 50 k's an hour, so that's likely to have trucks stacking across parts of Bayhead and below. Today, crash going into Durban on the M4 near Basel, February, so delays to come off the N2. Crash at Paradise Valley, causing big delays from Spaghetti Junction out towards Pinetown. A crash on the M13 between Hillcrest and Gillett, causing some delays there as well. Pretoria down to Joburg looking fairly sluggish today. A collision before Botha Avenue. That's backlogging to Linwood. Stationary vehicle bottom of the N1 at Buccleuch interchange. So very heavy through Midrand. And the stationary vehicle still with us N3 north at Van Buren. Backlogging traffic heavily out of Germiston and Alberton. 3rd Avenue dip. Rebecca, GQ, down at Eastern Cape. Closed at Newton Park due to flooding. Cape Town, a breakdown and to inbound near the airport runway. That's heavy from Khayelitsha. And a breakdown holding up on the M1 out of town this morning near Plattekloof or on Plattekloof. So delay setting out towards the Belleville area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
Gordon Ramsay is back, and your favorite kitchen disasters are still somehow in business. New season, same confused chefs, terrifying walk-ins, and enough grease to fry your Wi-Fi. Watch as Gordon tries to fix the unfixable with nothing but sheer rage, British sarcasm, and an iron stomach. Kitchen Nightmares Season 8, Wednesdays at 6 p.m. on S3. Come for the food, stay for the emotional damage.
You know, ever since I adopted positive energy-saving behaviors, the National Grid is thanking me. You should also adopt this lifestyle and your pocket will thank you too. Simply switch off non-essential appliances and lights when they're not in use. Reduce your geyser temperature to 60 degrees Celsius. Replace inefficient lights with LED lights. These are some of the ways you can use electricity wisely to help sustain our energy grid and contribute to a greener planet. Just like every rand counts, every kilowatt counts. Let's use electricity wisely. Eskom.
Do great solutions start with good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
All right, let's focus on issues of crime now and the fight against crime. Gate motor theft is on the rise across several areas in Gauteng, raising serious security concerns for homeowners. According to Fidelity ADT, organized criminals are targeting these motors to strip and sell their valuable components on the black market. As tactics become more advanced, experts warn that even homes with automated gates may no longer be safe without additional protective measures. Let's speak to Calvin Rafadi, who is crime and security expert, who joins me now to take that conversation forward. So in a way, Calvin, this seems to me to be a crime perpetrated against the resources we've had to, which are a grudge purchase that we've had to make in trying to stay safe from crime. What does this reveal about the shifting patterns, modus operandi, as far as they relate to what criminals consider to be valuable and that they can strip and sell on the black market?
Good morning to us and good morning to your SAFM listeners. Yes, indeed. It has been an ongoing crime for quite some time whereby criminals, they, opt to tamper with this particular motor gates so that they can also easily lift up the gates, not only to steal the machine, but to also have access into the house, the homes, and, break into those homes and then steal whatever the belongings. But indeed, there's a high demand in the black market of either the machine itself or the components inside the machine, where even those backup batteries, they are used by some of these people, as to charge their phones at their homes. But once the device, the equipment is stolen, normally it's easy to program it and use it elsewhere as part of being a remote gate for some of the other users.
Mm. And to what extent does this talk to tampering with the gate motors for the sake of being able to gain access into the property with the intention of committing further crimes, or is it purely driven by this idea that you can find valuables by taking these gate motors?
Yes, so these criminals either want to gain quick access right into the house, or they will then opt to sell the particular equipment. So, but basically what they do, if the motor is not, doesn't have the anti-screws, or perhaps you've got those locks, because sometimes even as the owner of that particular machine, you need to have the locks, those locks, so that you can flip the gears to set it on manual and not use mode. So it's easy for them to break that small lock, and then once they break the small lock, they can put the machine on manual and then just roll the gate open. So it's easy for them to have then access inside those particular homes.
Yeah.
But again, you have those other machines where you get the two gates, but with the arms, so they flip open on the, on both sides, or maybe one arm is just open on one arm. So even those ones, it's easy for criminals just to break the lock and then just flip open the what you call the particular arm, so that they can gain access.
Yeah.
So normally we urge our people that you must have anti-screws and then anti-screw theft, and then also you must have what we call anti-remote jamming. Because again, those machines, they are so vulnerable. The criminals, they've got this other remote with some aerial, which has got more power, the frequency. So even when you open your gate, they can just hold the button for quite some time, and you are not able to either close your gate or open your gate, and they can easily hijack you outside at your gate.
So once again then, Calvin, this comes down to homeowners and ordinary South Africans needing to incur additional expenditure. I see that there's talk about installing steel cages and brackets and the likes.
Yes, definitely. So one needs to put up those measures so that you can not only your machine doesn't get stolen, but also your home doesn't get broken into and get, or even to an extent that you get robbed. But again, some of these criminals, they are so I would say a step ahead. They will use uniforms that like they are coming from a company, even branded vehicles, and then as your neighbors see them kneeling down there by your gate, they think, no, it's a company that is coming to fix a particular machine. Sure. And yet they are there to, steal the machine or even break and go into your home and even steal your solar panels for that matter. So one has to be careful. Right. And lastly, even when you've got dogs in your yard, because dogs, they can easily help, to alert even yourself in the house, barking. Make sure that the dog doesn't have eye contact with anybody who goes past at the street, because the criminals, how they operate, they go close to the dog. Once the dog barks facing them, and barks and facing towards the house, then they know the owner is inside the house. But if it only barks towards them and not facing at the back, then they know there's nobody in the house, so they can easily break and leave the gate and then go and break even into the house.
All right. Thank you for those insights. That's Calvin Rafadi, who is crime and security expert, just weighing in on these new phenomena that have to do with trends of crime in the country. Let's go straight to N. Musa with the latest news.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. Now that's good news.
In our top stories, the N10 in the Eastern Cape reopened to traffic and police captain accused of rape granted bail. Good morning. The N10 between Nguba and Cookhouse in the Eastern Cape is open to traffic. This after a long closure due to a crash between two trucks yesterday. Spokesperson for the Transport Department, Unati Bimngoshe, says it took a while to clear the road as rescue vehicles did not have access to the road due to adverse weather conditions.
The recovery truck that could clear that wreckage had to take a long way around due to the snowfalls that have closed some of our mountain passes. And of course, panicking truck drivers as well as motorists blockaded the road, blocking its path to the wreckage, which is why it took so long for us to have that road clear. But thankfully, it has since been cleared and traffic is slowly moving now.
Meanwhile, in KwaZulu-Natal, Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs spokesperson Cindiso Simelane says disaster management teams on high alert as the Midlands braces for snow. The Weather Service has issued an alert level 2 warning. A number of other alerts are active, including a level 4 warning for damaging winds and strong waves along the coast in the province. Simelane says they will ensure the province's disaster response is ready.
We can indicate that across the province, inclement weather conditions continue to affect large parts. We are expecting snow in areas that are surrounding the Drakensberg. Now, in terms of the warning that we've received, areas that are within the Utukela district, the Herikwala district, and also parts of the Ugu district. These areas are the ones where we are expecting a bit of snowfall to fall. Now, the MEC for Kokta, Reverend Thulasizwe Simelane, has placed all our disaster management teams on high alert, and these teams are ensuring that all plans and contingencies are in place to deal with any situation that might develop as a result of the warning we have for snowfall.
Chairpersons of Parliament's governance oversight committees have highlighted failure of leadership and systems, as well as organised crime within the public service, for the dire state of the financial health of local government. The chairpersons were briefing the media on their oversight work. Jan de Villiers, who chairs the Public Service and Administration Portfolio Committee, says ghost workers are created by syndicates operating within the state.
It is a deliberate and orchestrated form of systemic corruption. It is organised crime within the state. And as a portfolio committee, tasked with oversight in the public service, the time for half measures and talk shops is over. So let us be clear, the phenomenon of ghost workers is not an issue of administrative error. There are real people creating these ghost workers, reaping the benefit of siphoning taxpayer money into their own coffers.
A 12-year-old boy has been charged with culpable homicide and driving without a license at the Brakpan Magistrates Court east of Johannesburg. A 14-year-old boy died after being hit by a vehicle that was allegedly being driven by the minor at the weekend. The 12-year-old was accompanied in court by his guardian. NPA spokesperson Lumka Mahanjana.
The 12-year-old was taken to a Brakpan Church office and later released into the care of his parents by police on the 8th of June 2025. In court, the matter was postponed to the 28th of August to determine his criminal capacity.
The 59-year-old police officer accused of raping a police trainee at the Pretoria West SAPS Training Academy intends to plead not guilty. He was granted bail in the Pretoria Magistrates Court after spending a month in custody. The officer allegedly threatened the 20-year-old with a misconduct charge for failing to salute him unless she slept with him. He also faces a sexual assault charge linked to another trainee in March. His lawyer Andrew Mwaba confirmed that his client will plead not guilty.
So indeed, we confirm that he is going to plead not guilty. And I can tell you that we have done our own groundwork. And yeah, we will be able to acquit him of all these allegations that are leveled against him.
And finally, Ukrainian officials say Kyiv and the port city of Odessa have come under massive Russian drone attacks. Kyiv's mayor has urged residents to stay indoors. Eyewitnesses speak of at least a dozen explosions and gunfire. In Odessa, an evacuated maternity ward and medical facility was hit. The governor of Odessa said one person was killed and at least 4 wounded. Recapping the top story, the N10 between Nguba and Cookhouse in the Eastern Cape is open to traffic this after a long closure due to a crash between 2 trucks yesterday. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 30754 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out.
Have you heard the latest news? Vincent, a 40-year-old man, wanted to save money on his car insurance premium, so he got a quote from Outsurance. Vincent now saves a massive 990 Rand a month on his 2022 Ford Ranger 2.2 litre. Get a quote today. See how much Outsurance could save you on your car insurance. Call 086 00 60,000 or visit outsurance.co.za. You always get something out. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
It's a very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, soccer, Mamelodi Sundowns and Bafana captain Ronwen Williams is heading to the FIFA Club World Cup to lead Sundowns past the group stages. And in cricket, Shukri Conrad tells the Proteas, embrace the moment ahead of Lord's World Test Championship final. Details just before 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Heavy snow around Kokstad. Please avoid travel. Certainly you won't be able to get through. And there's an urgent appeal from KZN authorities to stay away from the area if you want to just go and see snow. You could end up in all sorts of problems. The N2 between Harding and Kokstad is closed. The N2 Mount Aleph Kokstad is closed. Matatial Kokstad on the 56 is closed. And Kokstad through Kingscote on the 617 also closed as well. Just please stay away from that area. High winds across KZN, inland from Durban. Gusts up to 100 kilometres an hour expected today, averaging somewhere between 50 and 75 kilometres. Lots of fallen trees. N3 between Hilton and Moy River, also the R103 around Hilton as well. So some major concerns, not only with snow, but also those high winds. Going out of Durban, a crash at Paradise Valley earlier this morning. Still very heavy from Spaghetti Junction. A breakdown N2 south at Spaghetti Junction causing delays as well. Joburg N3 running north. A breakdown at Van Buren still there. It's a heavy one out of Germiston and Alberton areas this morning. Crash on the M1 south leaving Pretoria at Botha Avenue. That's backed from Atterbury Road. Crash on the N14 before you get to Brockfontein, the Krugersdorp Highway. Under pressure coming up to Pretoria as well. Cape Town, Kuburg Road, very heavy this morning, leaving Tableview. Big backlogs down towards the Montague Drive exit. And a broken down vehicle N2 inbound near the airport runway, pushing a queue back towards Spine Road at Khayelitsha. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. The Morning Brief with Thulasizwe Simelane. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
10 minutes after 8, it is great to be in your company. We're into the third hour of the Morning Brief on this rather cold Tuesday. It really is freezing across the country, so do stay warm. And if you don't have to venture outside, particularly in those areas that Rob has been mentioning that have snow and just slippery and tricky driving conditions, don't venture outside unless you really have to. Take care out there. So the conversation table is a full buffet this morning. The topics that we have raised do include some of the measures that have been announced by Cabinet that include the Employee Services Amendment Bill and the National Labour Migration Policy. Part of what it proposes to do is basically to give the Minister of Labour and Employment the ability to set limits for the employment of foreign nationals, documented foreign nationals in certain sectors, and also to limit the participation participation by foreign nationals in some sectors of the economy, such as establishing small, medium and micro enterprises, as well as trading in some sectors of the economy. So that, in essence and in a nutshell, is part of what is being proposed there. You may want to weigh in on that, but also the conversation around the leadership change in the African transformation movement, with Vuyo Zungula out as the party president, and in comes Professor Caesar Nongunga, who is now the new president of the ATM. Vuyo Zungula will continue to lead the party in Parliament. Those are some of the topics that are on the table, but don't feel limited. I do see calls from Hassan, who wants to raise the issue of the aid blockade in Gaza, as well as someone wanting to talk about the judge's apology and the Comrades Marathon. You can take part in that conversation. The number to dial, 086 000 2032. Please send me your WhatsApp voice notes to 061 410 4107. The third hour of the Tuesday edition of the Morning Brief starts now.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
It's a game of two halves represented by two national flags, and both nations are chasing victory to bring joy to their citizens. This is more than just an international friendly. It is the Southern African Derby. Mzansi's Bafana Bafana face the Mambas of Mars. Catch the incredible action of African football. South Africa versus Mozambique on Tuesday, 10 June at 7 p.m. Streaming live on SABC Plus and S3. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Call Thulasizwe now. 086 000 2032.
Let me go straight to Hassan in Joburg. Good morning to you, Hassan. You want to raise
Good
this
morning.
issue around the flotilla that was trying to take aid to Gaza and was blocked?
That's right. It's the Freedom Flotilla, and it's called Madlayin. And they have about 12 activists on board, and they were about 200 kilometers from Gaza, and they were, against international law, an act of piracy, the activists call it. Israel boarded the ship and arrested Greta Thunberg, Rima Hassan, and various other activists there. And I really think that if this was just a Somalian ship doing something to Florida or something, the media would be really all over the story, you know. The people of Gaza have been under blockade for over 18 years, of course, 20 odd months of war on the Gaza, with close to 60,000 people killed directly and 100,000, according to Lancet, under the rubble. And I really think that this exceptionalism of the State of Israel must be called out. And I really want a little bit more conversation on this. I had other topics to talk about, but I think this is the moment for Palestine.
It is an important conversation, Hassan. And also just talk to me about your own understanding of how the blockade of this flotilla fits in with the concerns that have been raised, especially in the last 3 months or so since the resumption of the fighting in Gaza, after that brief reprieve that was there. And then there was that blockade and aid not flowing in. And then there was talk about, the initial, I think, 100 trucks being allowed. Would this not have helped, in your view, this flotilla adding and crowding in aid?
Yeah, I mean, this so-called NGO that was created, killing off UNRWA. UNRWA is the memory of Palestinian right to return. And the reason Israel and with complicity of the U.S. has tried to kill UNRWA has been that it reminds them constantly Israel came into being. And part of the deal was that the UN will provide refugee services to Palestinians. And when Israel kills that, it kills the idea that Palestinians have the right to return. So I think why the flotilla is important is that it focuses again on the victims of Gaza who are starving. They are starving. So this aid whatever they call themselves, GH something, are really a bunch of CIA and other crooks who are not there to provide aid, but rather there to kind of spy and look out for so-called terrorists that they seek to destroy.
Hassan, thank you for raising that. A really crucial conversation, the situation in Gaza of grave concern for many across the world. Let me go to Glenn in Bedford View. Talk to me, Glenn. You want to talk about the judge's apology. That's Judge Rata Mokwatleng, right?
Glenn, good morning, good morning, my brother.
Glenn is you, brother, not me. Please go ahead.
Thulas, my brother, the judge's apology, for me, it didn't sound very genuine.
Yeah.
It sounded more like someone who wants to advertise himself. It's more like someone says, well, I've got black friends, therefore I can't be racist. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yes, I get you.
Because he was advertising himself that I know the president, I know Bishop Tutu, I know this and this. That is not the conversation. The conversation is the judge is not the first time. The second time, he is really irritated by these black professors in front of him, and it's not that. And it shows even his facial expression when those lawyers are busy addressing him. He's not interested.
Yeah.
You understand? Sometimes he will even respond on behalf of the state. So he didn't get the message. So the apology, unfortunately to me, I mean, it's not accepted because this judge is quite condescending, really, when it comes to these black professors before him. He talks to them like little kids. It's not right.
Yeah. It's really. I mean, Glenn. One thing that I noted is that nowhere was Advocate Mnisi mentioned in all of that.
Absolutely.
The apology went to everyone, including Chief Justices who have now retired. Mogoeng was mentioned. Former DCJ Moseneke was mentioned. The names of Thabo Mbeki were invoked. The name Charles Mnisi didn't come up.
Absolutely. The name dropping from a judge, I mean, Thulas was really, really shocking for me. Because it's like me, you come to me and say, no, the president normally comes to my house in Bedford View. What does that have to do with anything? If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Gotcha. Glenn, I can't go any further because I am planning to become a legal practitioner. I don't want to be scandalizing the judiciary, but I take the point that you are making. That's Glenn in Bedford View. Yunus, talk to me about the Comrades Marathon. You're still lingering from the Comrades Marathon 2 days into it. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, hi there, Thulas. 2 points quickly. The first one about the comrades, well done to all those who ran it and to both the winners, male and female, who happen to be South Africans.
Sure.
Just to add on to one point what Hassan brought up earlier, the lack of coverage. Now, I've seen videos at the Comrades Marathon where solidarity groupings and the EFF had major demonstrations against the Israeli athletes that were there. But I'm finding it strange that I don't see, by and large, media covering this thing. Now, I was wondering why. And, so there were banners all over bridges there, pro-Palestinian banners there and targeting those very specific Israeli runners there because obviously, they're serving the IDF and we know what's happening there. That's the first point. The second point to us is, in this bitterly cold weather, let us spare a thought for the homeless, those that are living in shacks, those in Abasalibas and Jondolo. I mean, it's really sad. But at the same time, while we have politicians who ask us to be frugal while they profligate at our expense. I'm making reference here now to the deputy president. He goes to Tokyo and spends over 300,000 rands a night in accommodation. Now, to me, that's highly problematic. And all I can say is, Aibo Paul, inking
Wait, don't go, Yunus. What's that word you used? They do what? At our expense?
They profligate.
Profligate.
At our expense. Inkinga.
Thank you for that. That's Yunus Joburg. The late Presley Chweneyachai would be proud of the word profligate as used by Yunus there to describe the spending on accommodation by the Deputy President Paul Mashatile. One of the things that Yunus mentioned is the plight of the homeless in this bitterly cold weather. So I've got a voice note that takes that conversation forward. Let me play that now.
Good morning, Thulas and SAFM listeners. Thulas, in this cold weather, the people that are hit hard are those that are living on street and those that are paying for electricity. Those that are not paying for electricity are enjoying the electricity. But when the grid goes down, whatever happens, those that are paying for electricity are going to be included when there is a load reduction. Thanks, it's Lucy in Gauteng.
Lucy, thank you for that. Yeah, it's one of those situations that energy iniquity, I suppose is what we can call it, access as well as affordability. We were told that the crisis has gone from supply to one of affordability. Who can afford? Can you afford, for example, to keep your heater on with the prices of electricity doing what they are doing? You have the need because it's bitterly cold, but can you afford that? And it then talks to those kind of dynamics that come into play, as well as issues of homelessness in these conditions. I'll take more of your calls and your WhatsApp voice notes a bit later on.
If you think you cannot afford a lawyer, think again. Clientele Legal has made professional legal services affordable for you. Whether it's a civil, criminal, or labor-related matter, we have a nationwide panel of attorneys standing by to assist you. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195 and we'll call you back. Clientele General is a licensed non-life insurer and an authorized FSP. Standard rates and terms and conditions apply.
13 Southern African nations and North African guests, Morocco, will battle it out for the ultimate glory in the Hollywood Bets COSAFA Cup 2025 in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. Catch the beautiful game on SABC Plus, SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC 1 from 4 to 15 June. Stay tuned to SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAFM. Leading the conversation.
Yeah, so I found this quite fascinating. Some internet users are experiencing slow connection speeds, and that is due to emergency maintenance on the West Africa cable system. It's known as WACS, a critical submarine fiber link between South Africa and Europe. The repairs, which began on the 1st of June, are expected to last until mid-June, and they have impacted especially those in the western and southern regions of the country. So if you thought I was making things up earlier on yesterday when I mentioned this, yeah, it is happening, that work, maintenance work. Let's talk to Brendan Peterson, who is editor at Tech Reframed and also Business Day Digital Business. Good morning to you, Brendan, and thank you for your time. What is the WACS system, and why does it matter that it's undergoing this maintenance with the resultant, throttling, or I don't know if it's throttling as such, but reduction in speeds for some people?
So WACS, WACS, as you explained earlier, is one of the big internet cables coming into South Africa that's bringing international traffic in. It usually handles about 14.5, so 14.5 terabytes of data. And as you mentioned, this is, disproportionately impacting the Western Cape and, southern parts of the country. So that's where the majority of us down this part of the country are getting our international internet from. So if you're connecting to, the Netflixes, the YouTubes, that sort of services, you may have in the last few days, especially living in those areas, noticed that it's either the quality is not as great as it normally is, it's slower, it's glitchy. A friend of mine messaged me the other night to say, that his internet just completely switched off for a second or two. So that's what WACS is. It's not the only cable coming to the country, but looking at the western part of the country and the southern part of the country, it's the one that brings the majority of our traffic in.
Yeah, so these systems, these subsea systems, Brandon, you will know better than I do, that they've become, an object of intrigue, given the recent reports about sabotage and parts, especially in Europe, in those areas where the geopolitics are playing themselves out. In this country and on the west coast towards southern Africa, what do we know about the work that's being undertaken? Is it regular maintenance or was there a fault that had been identified?
So in this case, it seems that there was a technical fault near Namibia in one of the cable's power units. So that's essentially, what is helping power the cable, helping it work properly. And because of that fault, they had to send in a ship who's got to essentially, pull up that piece of the cable, replace it, repair it, and then obviously test it and then put it back in. because obviously it's a subsea cable, there's a lot of complexity to this. So it's not something that's going to happen overnight. In fact, they're looking at, if everything goes according to schedule, for this to be fully fixed and operational again around about 8 a.m. on the 16th of June.
So talk to me a bit more about that. You talk about the complexity because it's subsea. So there's a repair ship and it goes there and does what? It recovers the faulty unit. That sounds like a laborious, because it sounds to me like it involves diving and the likes.
It does actually, and I'm not a person who would love that kind of thing, but I'm very grateful to the people who do these things for us. But it does involve diving. It involves digging up the cable because you can't just have a cable laying at the bottom of the ocean floor. Yes. Making it easily accessible to anyone or to any sort of circumstances. So they've got to dig up the cable. They've then got to take it to the surface. They've got to remove the impacted part of the cable, repair it, so, replace that with another piece of cable, repair it, test it, make sure all of that works, then put it back down, and obviously still monitor it for a little bit of time to make sure everything is running according to the way it should be.
Brendan, this is not part of the story you and I agreed to cover, but feel free to indulge me if you can, but also if you can't, I'll understand fully. What I alluded to earlier on is the deliberate sabotage of subsea cable infrastructure that's been reported in a number of regions, especially in Europe. Is that a conversation that we are becoming conscious of as a country, the phenomena such as anchor dragging, with the result that you end up with and when these systems are disturbed, it has a dire impact for all of us in the country. Is that something that we are starting to talk about as a national security issue or something like that?
I mean, I can't speak on behalf of government. I don't know that it is. But I think, it is a conversation that we do need to be having more and more sort of talks around. Because, if you talk to just the average person on the street about the internet, and I don't blame anyone for this, most of us don't know where we get our internet from, how it works, any of the basic things. And I've been saying to a lot of people lately, as we're looking at technology becoming more integral into daily life, we need to have some sort of basic understanding because, at the end of the day, what we're doing is we're putting our ability to learn, our ability to earn, connect, those sort of things in the hands of people who maybe don't know, the legislation that needs to happen. And, we're putting our livelihoods at the hands of other people. And I think the more that the public understands that these are things that are happening overseas, the more we can raise that sort of conversation and make it something, the government does actually risk if they're not actively working on that. But from what I've heard, I've not heard anything from, the Minister, Solimalato, or anybody else, that this is something that is sort of at the forefront of their concerns right now.
All right. I've got to thank you for your time and your insights this morning. That's Brendan Peterson, who's editor at Tech Reframed and Business Day Digital Business. So, it does sound to me like this is an issue that we can't afford to leave to the back burner. It is a national security issue. This is how these things play themselves out in the modern, interconnected world.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Good morning. Let's kick off with Ronwen Williams and Mamelodi Sundowns. They are at the FIFA Club World Cup next week, and Williams is aiming to help the side reach for their first ever knockout stage.
We're all equal. We're all human beings. Yes, they playing for the best clubs in the world, but we're playing for one of the best clubs in Africa as well. So we have to show, why we part of the tournament. We're not there to add numbers. We're there to show our ability, show our strengths as well, and we're there to learn. Learn from them because they play these high-profile games week in, week out.
Now, South Africa's all-format head cricket coach Shukri Conrad has issued a rallying cry ahead of the World Test Championship final against Australia at London's Lords starting tomorrow. He urged his side to embrace the moment.
We're here, and that's all that matters. We get a chance to walk away as the World Test champions. Playing Australia doesn't get any bigger than that. So, what's gone before counts for absolutely nothing at the minute. Be quietly confident going into this game that we can pull one over them. We're a confident bunch. We play well as a unit. If there are any vulnerabilities amongst them, I'm sure we'd be able to exploit that.
Rugby, the Bulls director, Rugby Jake White, gearing up for what he believes will be a very different kind of challenge when his side faces Leinster in the United Rugby Championship final this Saturday at the Croke Park in Dublin. He says his priority was to create space for senior players to guide and mentor the next generation.
World Cup, Canaan's won a World Cup. We've got guys who experienced playing in finals in the last 3 seasons. Now, what I want them to do is talk to each other about what works, what doesn't work, what they got right, what they got wrong. And even though it's a different fixture, even though it's a different challenge, I mean, finals are what they are. They're finals, and it's all or nothing, you know. And so I will work hard this week to get the players to enjoy it, and also just to be ready for the fact that, you know, it's a final, and people follow sporting teams around the world to go and watch finals to sometimes see the underdog win. I mean, that's what happens in sport.
And finally, golf. Justin Thomas opened up at Oakmont ahead of this week's US Open, admitting he thought he could catch the world number 1, Scotty Scheffler, but he says the gap is massive, nearly 500 points.
It's effortless. I mean, he's every single aspect of his game is unbelievable. I think his mental game is better than anybody out here. I think to be able to play with those expectations and to stay present as often as he has, to me is maybe more impressive than even the golf he's playing. I just think it's so hard to do, and it's also so hard to explain if you're in his shoes. But I mean, he just, it doesn't make any mistakes.
And that's your sport for now. John Gericke will be back on par with more around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, snowfall at Kokstad in southern KwaZulu-Natal has led to road closures in the province. The Department of Transport in the province says the R617 between Kokstad and Pietermaritzburg has been closed, as well as parts of the N2. Chairpersons of Parliament's governance oversight committees have highlighted failure of leadership and systems, as well as organised crime within the public service, for the dire state of the financial health of local government. And Bloomberg is reporting that the World Bank has approved a $1.5 billion loan to South Africa to support structural reforms aimed at boosting the country's infrastructure. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very good morning. As you heard the news, Kokstad, southern parts of KZN, seems to be the epicenter of the impact of this cut-off low that's moving through the country. Major snowfalls overnight last night. All your major routes around Kokstad in and out are currently closed, and there's an urgent appeal from authorities in KZN. Please do not travel in the area to onlook at the snow, to have a look. Don't go snow hunting. You could find yourself in all sorts of trouble on those wet, icy, slippery, closed and snowed in roads. So just avoid travel through Kokstad, really for your own safety, nothing else. Mthatha is also another area that's been really badly hit this morning. Mthatha down in the Eastern Cape, very heavy flooding across the region. The N2 Mthatha to Tsolo is closed. The R61 between the airport and Mthatha also closed down as well this morning. Over in Joburg, the N3 going north remains busy coming out of Germiston and Albert, and the breakdown at Van Buren that's been there all morning still is. Crash coming out of Pretoria after the R21, so the M1 south into that one is slow. Durban has been the first morning where you've been having to loop around this closure of Stapleton Road. Stapleton Road closed probably for next month or so for repair works at the M13, and very heavy pressure in Pinetown. Also the M4 is quite bad this morning. Umhlanga through to Durban Central. Keep in mind Masabulali Yengo is still closed to demolish the finish line from the weekend's comrades. And Cape Town, Coburg Road is the standout this morning. Queues from Bloberg Road through to Montague Drive, and the N2 inbound's got a breakdown near the airport runway, slowing traffic from Khayelitsha. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
The business update on SAFM.
Let's say good morning once again to Ndauling Lechela. Ndauling, so it was only a few years ago that this idea of Africa starting up its own credit rating agency to, you know, do the same work that the likes of your Moody's and what's the other one? S&P and Fitch. It was only a few years ago that it was mooted. You're telling us that it's close to launch.
That's right, Sulas. Now, the African Credit Rating Agency
is set to launch by the end of September, of course, aiming to provide a more accurate assessment of repayment risk for African countries, municipalities, and companies. This initiative, of course, comes from criticism of the big three global ratings agencies, which African governments accuse of bias and lack of transparency. In terms of timelines of key aspects, the agency expects to launch its first sovereign rating report by late 2025 or early next year, and the appointment of a CEO in the third quarter. The agency says it will prioritize local currency debt ratings to support domestic capital markets and reduce foreign currency risk. This approach aims to address concerns raised by African governments, including the likes of Ghana and Zambia, which have publicly condemned downgrades by global rating agencies that contributed to higher borrowing costs and eventual defaults. Now, this announcement also comes alongside S&P Global's move to they're now saying that they are planning to increase their presence in Africa. The agency is weighing up expansion options at its Joburg office to boost visibility and address concerns that rating agencies contribute to the high cost of capital on the continent.
I wonder how much sway the African rating agency will have in the global markets, right? Because that's what it's about, the perceptions and the endorsement of one agency or the other in terms of your credit profile. Let's talk about Oceania. This is a story that we covered yesterday. Oceania, and now you're telling us that they are warning of an offal shortage if Brazil ban stays in place.
Yes, Thulas. And there's the Lucky Star owner that sells canned chicken livers is warning of a potential local offal shortage due to that ban on Brazilian poultry imports. The ban in place since Brazil's avian flu outbreak has led to concerns about the impact on local producers who rely heavily on these imports for mechanically deboned poultry meat and offal. Now, about 94% of the 35,000 tons of poultry products imported monthly come from Brazil. In a News 24 article, the company's CEO Neville Brink said this should be mitigated by adopting a regionalization approach, restricting imports only from affected areas rather than the entire country. In addition to that, Oceania is concerned about tariffs, especially the ongoing trade tensions between the US and EU, which could affect their US business and exports to Europe. Alongside the warnings came its financial results, where earnings slumped over 40% due to those tough trading conditions.
All right, do your thing, Ndauling. Where are we likely to make money and where are we likely to lose money in the markets today?
Hey, it still seems like we are in a wait and see mode, just as we await updates from those trade talks taking place in Britain. Now, local markets in for another day as trade continues to be choppy. In terms of company news, there are earning reports from Food Group Premier as well as Telkom. Meanwhile, in currency markets, a softer dollar continues to boost the rand. It's sitting comfortably under the 1780 mark at 1772 to the greenback this hour. Over in the US, futures are in positive territory. Trade talks aside, traders also eyeing inflation data, with analysts expecting prices to accelerate on the back of tariffs. Lastly, in Asia, investors shrugging off downbeat Chinese trade data and on track to close the day mostly in positive territory.
Always right on the money. That's how Ndauling Lechela. Thank you for that, Ndauling. Have yourself a great day. Ndauling has kept you updated on business, economics, and the markets throughout the course of the show this morning.
Thulasizwe Simelane on the Morning Brief. Weekdays, Monday to Friday, 6 to 9 a.m.
All right, let's turn to this now. The country's universities are facing a funding crisis following the United States' aid freeze that has left key research and development initiatives in limbo. With 1.4 billion rand in outstanding funding across at least 13 institutions, the impact is reverberating throughout the health, climate science and technology research programs, prompting universities to seek emergency relief from government and alternative international funders. Let's speak to Makifeni, who is the chairperson of the Select Committee on Education, Sciences and Creative Industries. Good morning and thank you for your time. From your interaction with universities, South Africa and other stakeholders, how big is this gap? We're talking specifically here now about the gap left by the withdrawal of funding. There was funding research at these institutions. How big is the gap?
Good morning once again to you, Mr. Simelane, and to us. The gap is really big. We're talking about the billions and billions of rands, which is going to affect our universities across the country, plus minus the 6 universities that we're talking about, specifically on certain specialized fields. Take up the question of research, your researchers.
Yeah, Mr. Fenny, Mr. Fenny, we're battling to hear you, so I'll ask you to just hold on for a second. Let's see if we can dial you back and get you on a better line, because it does sound like he's on the move. Is Mr. Makifeni, and I mean, you do understand in the morning people are on the move, and naturally sometimes you'll find people in a spot where it's not ideal for this kind of a conversation. So we want to get as clear a line as we possibly can so that you get the full impact of what he's describing there. With universities, South Africa, for example, talking about, applying for up to 2 billion rand in emergency funding to offset the losses that have resulted. So we do need to get the full benefit of that conversation. I believe we have you back on a clearer line, and perhaps you've been able to find a quiet spot. Yes. So you were describing the impact on these research programs at various institutions.
Yes. As I've said, it's felt across the spectrum. As I was mentioning that specifically on specialized fields, because remember, for us to be able to collaborate with other countries on different aspects of specialized specialized, we need this funding. So hence I've said that it did it's a severe blow to our country.
And the way I understand it, some of the areas of research that are affected would include like the likes of HIV/AIDS research, biosafety, mental health, and climate change. Is that the picture that's emerging?
Indeed. If we talk about all of those fields, including agriculture, hence I was saying it cut across the specialized fields that our universities where it's not as if we do not have specialities, but for you to be able to be at a global competitive level, you must have those specialized researches in order for you to be inundated with developments across the globe. So it is affecting us at that level. It's heavy, and then it's already felt by our institutions. As you know that our budget does not cover everything. Hence it is going to be forcing us now to, in fact, to be looking to other forms of interventions. What alternative funding can we get? We'll have to come closer to the to BRICS. How can they practicalize our relations at that level? But currently. We are confronted with a huge crisis.
In fact, you take me to my next question. I was going to ask you about that because there's this appeal now from universities, South Africa, for National Treasury to come through to the tune of some 2 billion rand in relief. But I've also heard conversations about perhaps this is the moment to be talking about self-sufficiency and, moving away from this dependency on, the traditional partners such as your USAID, CDC and the NIH. While we talk self-sufficiency in the long run, which I believe maybe is ideal, how do we plug the gap immediately? What are the conversations that are happening?
Yes, as I've highlighted that, look, the alternative form of funding in this instance is going to be, very, very, very critical. However, there are engagements that has been taking place between the department and the National Treasury in order to try, even though it is not going to be enough, but in trying to come closer and in bridging the current gap that we're confronted with. So it's critical that the necessary stakeholders must come on board, and also to look in terms of other alternative and independent fund, form of funding, in order to close this current gap, because you do have those, a form of donors. It's going to take us some time for South Africa to be, stand on its own, the so-called self-reliance. So hence I'm saying that we will find. The National Treasury and the department have made some requests to these institutions that they must make some submissions in the form of formal applications and requests, in order for the gaps, to overcome the gap, even though it is not going to be, a total, close of that particular gap, but coming closer to, so that we avoid, a collapse of the necessary good work that have already been done in the form of your agriculture, your HIV/AIDS specializations, your collaboration with different community projects, because it is also going to affect even the communities themselves that were relying in this form of research.
All right, I've got to thank you for your time. That's Maki Feni, who is the chairperson of the Select Committee on Education, Sciences and Creative Industries.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
All right, let me take one or two of your voice notes. Someone wants to weigh in on that loan that has been advanced by the World Bank to South Africa in order to assist with the structural reforms, in particular, trying to, boost the performance of the likes of Eskom and Transnet.
Prathulas, good morning. It's Ndomisa from Waterfall in KZN. Indeed, the professor that you're interviewing there regarding this, the World Bank loan or IMF? Indeed, we need to know what are the conditions of this loan. As a country, we should try as much as we can to limit the use of such loans and rely on internal finances, more especially since we have problems like corruption. So indeed, we need to understand what are the conditions of these loans, and will they interfere with our sovereignty, in due time, or as soon as possible. Actually, we need to know that before this loan is used.
Yeah, absolutely. Full transparency, I hope, will be coming through from government about that, because, already government has been telling us how heavily indebted we are. As to the question of whether or not we could be able to fund some of this within our own resources, I think it has become clear that we are not in a position at this point. And that's not to say we're a poor country, but we are a country that has been ravaged by poor management of public finances, such that we find ourselves, that's the reality in which we are at the moment, that we are in a situation where, in terms of the financing, the fiscus, it has become really difficult. That's why we had those conversations about where will the additional money come from. Let me take this one. I think earlier on, it talks to what we talked about earlier on, those measures that are being introduced by Cabinet that will see a limitation on the number of foreign nationals, documented foreign nationals that can be employed in certain sectors, but also a limit on the participation by foreign nationals in some sectors, such as small and medium enterprises and the likes, trade and sectors like those.
Good morning, Thulas and SAFM listeners. This is Vicky Boni from Pochin Katu. Thulas, I'm not surprised, because we've got a government that will do whatever it takes to accommodate foreigners in this country. They are very much concerned about foreigners in this country. They will make everything possible for foreigners to be free in this country. But we are not doing the same in their countries. Crimes are committed by the foreigners, but the government is too much concerned of these people. No, man, this is not fair. South Africans are depending on 350 grants. What for?
Yeah, I hear you. But isn't this government now responding to that? Because I think even in their framing, in the framing of these policies, there's a policy and then there's a bill. In terms of how they've framed it, they do acknowledge that there's growing concern about unregulated, uncontrolled, illegal migration and its impacts on the labor market in South Africa. And I think that's exactly what they say. So these limitations that they are seeking to introduce, don't they speak exactly to the issue that you were raising? I wonder, to what extent do they go far enough, I suppose, becomes the question. Do they go far enough to address the concerns that many, many people have raised?
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Top story is Kokstad and the heavy snow that fell overnight. All your major routes going in and out of Kokstad are effectively closed. And please, there is an urgent appeal from the KZN authorities to avoid driving into Kokstad to have a look at the snow. You could end up in very treacherous conditions. It's ice cold. The roads are icy. They're snowed under. And really, that alert to avoid Kokstad is given for your own personal safety. Multiple routes closed, including the run out of Kokstad to Harding, Kokstad to Brooksneck, Kokstad up to Underberg, and Kokstad down to Matati Aal as well. So full closures in place there. The other issue we're watching is also pretty treacherous. A lot of flooding around the Mthatha area. Very dark down there. Heavy rains, localized flooding, and a big major power outage as well. R61 between Mthatha and the airport is currently closed, and the N2 that runs from Mthatha up to Tsolo is also under significant amounts of water, and it is closed also. Joburg side this morning, or Gauteng at least, still started in Joburg. Crash on the M1 North going up to Rivonia, slow from Bayers North, slow from Malabongwe, from Randburg side really. Still with a breakdown on the N3 North at Van Buren. That's been there all morning. Delays coming up from Germiston. Durban, the M4 inbounds pretty heavy this morning from Virginia Airport all the way to the city centre. If you want to avoid that, just keep in mind Masabalele Yengor is still closed at Moses Mabhida Stadium, and there's a bit of pressure at Cliffdale on your way out towards Pietermaritzburg. Cape Town, unusual queues this morning on Tableview's Kuberg Road, coming down out of Tableview, passing the refinery all the way down to Montague Drive. That's very unusual. And the N1 inbound sits in traffic between Plattercliff Hill and the elevated freeway in the CBD. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
A bowl of cereal, a glass of orange juice, some flavored yogurt for breakfast. Ultra-processed products such as these may be high in sugar, salt, or saturated fat. Having too much of these products could lead to diabetes, hypertension, and heart disease. Our health is in danger. We have the right to know what's in our food. Demand front of package warning labels now. Sign the petition on heala.org. HEALA.org.
This week on BBC Primetime, watching TV could make you a winner. It's the BBC Primetime Watch and Win competition. Just tune into your BBC Primetime shows, answer a few simple questions on S3's TikTok account, and you could walk away with awesome prizes. From thrilling dramas to jaw-dropping reality shows, the more you watch, the more chances you have to win. Watch, answer, win. Only on BBC Primetime. Airs weeknights 9 to 11 p.m. on S3. Your couch just became the best seat in the game.
Call Thulasizwe now, 086 000 2032.
Yeah, let me read one or two of your messages that have come through on the WhatsApp line. Mr. S. in Bloemfontein says, who was the judge apologizing to? Because Charles Mnisi wasn't present in court. He saw it fit to do it, but nowhere did he mention Mnisi, reflecting there on the apology by Judge Rata Mokgwatleng, who apologized yesterday for those comments that he made about, is this South Africa run by blacks, was the sentiment that came through, that drew widespread backlash from various quarters. And then someone here is Vugani in Durban, says these ATM changes are bigger than everyone thinks. Remember that President Zuma met with Prof, the new leader of the ATM now, and there were discussions. Do you think it's a coincidence that Floyd Shivambu and Vuyo Zungula are removed right about the same time? you don't learn, hey? Don't get surprised when they emerge as presidents and deputy in the not-so-distant future. I have said too much already. That's according to Vukani in Durban. Interesting take there, Vukani. I've heard a few people speculating about, quote-unquote, the chess move that may be in play in relation to that. We'll have to wait and see how it plays itself out. Let me speak to Tsepo in Tshwane. Good morning to you, Tsepo. You're a junior pilot. You want to weigh in about this crash that happened in KZN?
Yes, I'm a licensed private pilot. Look, just to weigh in on you made a statement and I thought maybe I can assist. Look, the light aircraft that we were talking about, it has got two set of controls. So even if the student was in command at the time of the accident, he would not have been out of the rules to be in control if he was flying with an instructor that is licensed. So what would normally happen is that my instructor would say, you have control, and then for the next 30 minutes I have in control.
Yeah.
At any given time when my instructor feels that I am not doing something that I ought to be doing, he would say, give me control, and then he would take control. So I really do not think that the student would have been at fault to have been flying the aircraft with an extra person on board.
Yeah, gotcha. I think what that person was asking, the caller, was about was the other person in the, one of the passengers, was it the instructor or was it other people that were being transported? But
yes,
yeah.
It has been clarified that it was the instructor.
Oh, I got you. All right, I missed that. Thank you for
and
that.
I can tell you that he would not have been allowed to fly without an instructor if he's still a student pilot and carrying a passenger.
Perfect.
That much I can guarantee.
Tsepo, I appreciate your insights. That's
You're
Tsepo in
welcome.
Tshwane there. Let me go to Romeo in Poch. Is it still called Poch? I think I've asked you this before, Romeo. Or is it Tlokwe now? It's still Poch.
Yes, no. Now it's Potchefstroom, but Port and Pennersdorp has amalgamated. It's called now JB Max Municipality.
I see. Talk to me. You want to talk about immigration in the country?
Thulas, look, we have a program already now that we don't even know the report. Where is it now in terms of illegal spaza shops? And we don't get feedback. All those shops are open. They are not being raided in most of the cities. Now we are engaging on this one, but on another level, different level, where we're checking those who are documented or undocumented who are working for formal, businesses. The problem to us is in the townships where people are taking the township economy.
Yeah.
Where these people are taking the township economy. Now we are not going to look at the spaza shops anymore. We are somewhere else. No, Thulas, this is not.
I hear you.
Organized.
I hear you, Romeo. But let me. I don't know if this will comfort you, but part of what they're talking about is that the policy will complement other interventions, and they're saying that it will include amendments to the National Small Enterprise Act. And this is the critical part where I think maybe you might find comfort. They're saying, and according to Cabinet, this will limit foreign nationals establishing small, medium and micro enterprises and trading in some sectors of the economy. Now, admittedly, I've not looked at the list of those sectors, but I would imagine they talk to your concerns, township enterprises and the likes. I'd be surprised if those are not included therein.
Let's see it, Thulas. Let's see the implementation part of it. We'll see what's going to happen.
Absolutely, Romeo. Thank you for your time this morning. That's Romeo in Potchefstroom there. Let me quickly play a voice note that has to do with the apology by Judge Ratamo Kgatling.
Hello, Ziggy Randberg. Very happy for former court reporters like myself that the long-delayed murder trial of 10 years of cover-up as well for the murder of Senzo Mayiba is finally going to be resumed today after a very brief interruption yesterday in favor of the recovery of advocates who attended the Comrades Marathon.
All right, Zig, thank you for that. Zig has got that chuckle that he does when he's making his point, and you know that he's about to take it in a uniquely Zig direction there. But I do appreciate your engagements, Zig, and everyone else. But unfortunately, that's how we come to the end of today's edition of the Morning Brief. But don't go anywhere. More quality news, current affairs, and talk programming still to come here on SAFM. Starting immediately after 9 a.m., after the news with N. Musa, it will be Kathy Motlatlana with the talking. It will be KG Mweketsi, I'm told. KG Mweketsi standing in for Kathy on the talking point.
In our top stories, snowfall leads to road closures and 12-year-old charged with culpable homicide after fatal road crash. Good morning. Snowfall at Kokstad in southern KwaZulu-Natal has led to road closures in the province. The Department of Transport in the province says the R617 between Kokstad and Pietermaritzburg has been closed, as well as parts of the N2. Motorists have also been urged to delay their